Good, you're good, okay. Thank you. All right, it is 6 o'clock, so I'll call to order the regular meeting of the Ojai Planning Commission for Wednesday, April 2nd. And Sherry, if you are out there in TV land.
Yep.
You do a roll call.
Chair Trent,
Here.
Vice Chair Murphy,
Here.
Commissioner Bennett,
Here.
Commissioner Chesley,
Here.
Commissioner Graham.
Here.
Okay, and Jonathan, you mind doing the pledge? Sure. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Okay. Approval of the agenda. Lucas, any revisions? No? Okay, we're good. Okay. All right, so this is the time that's set aside for public communications, for members of the public to address anything that's not on the agenda. And I do not have any cards here for anything that's not on the agenda. Sherry, is there anybody out in TV
No.
land? No? Okay, cool. We'll move on. Consent items. Meeting minutes. Anybody have any revisions to the meeting minutes?
Oh, I've got some notes on the minutes.
Yeah?
I'm sorry, I'm doing a little nitpicking here, but just want to prove to everybody I actually read this
Oh,
stuff.
you're good.
In the
We do have to sign this, so that's good.
in the first line of subject regarding the removal of existing, it's the demolition of, I believe, of the existing residence, not
And I'm sorry,
removal.
where is this?
It's the very first line under subject.
Are you talking about the staff report?
No, this is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
on meetings.
On minutes.
Oh, thank you. This is, now I do look like I need help.
You just don't have your glasses.
Yeah, oh, I'm still,
Okay.
oh, here we go, last page of this. The last page, page 4 of 4, item 4, the line that starts with, the commission identified the following changes to the topics. And it was not, as I remember the discussion, they were not changes to the topics. It was that we identified the following candidates for discussion in rank order of preference. Is that fair? I looked at Lucas, but it seems to me that it was a discussion about which items we wanted to put out there, and we wanted to give some indication of what we thought were the most important issues for us to deal with.
We could just eliminate a couple of words in that sentence and capture your preference.
Yep.
If you just eliminate following changes to, you're good.
But yeah, some of them were changes. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, I'll accept that.
All right,
Okay, so strike following changes?
the following changes.
The following changes, okay.
If I could just get clarification, was it also understood that this was a rank order, or is this, because what we could do is just take out the numbers and just
Yeah.
identify bullets?
Yeah, bullets,
As
that's a
well.
good idea. Yeah, because I
Okay.
don't think we had any sort of priority.
I do.
I thought we were being coached into having a priority.
I thought we did.
Did we? I can't remember.
Look,
By council.
I'm a coach, yes, but here's the situation. It's 5 items.
Right,
You've got an hour with.
yeah,
with-
right, no.
Yes, so.
So, well, anyway, I would drop the numbers.
Okay.
Okay, so leave those as bullets.
The other thing, under 5, it said, future agenda items, the commission received a report from the community development director. And then, that was not the PowerPoint that we were given, was it? We were given
No,
a
I
PowerPoint.
think what, and this is kind of for the entire commission, these are meant to be action.
I understand. I understand.
So there's not necessarily a lot of detail. If
no-
you're wanting the detail, you can go back to the meeting and
No, I
look at.
don't, no, I
at where item
thoroughly
5 is,
respect the fact that
Okay.
the commission has changed from a he said this and she said that kind of minute taking to an action
Verbatim,
oriented
yeah.
one, but it would seem to me that when we do have information brought to us, and it's probably someplace else in here,
Are you
when we-
talking about the report itself?
It'd be
yeah.
nice to know what the report was. I mean,
So
to
the-
just
so
limit
re-
the
So
subject.
the way to access the report is to go to the agenda packet, which is in a link that is right next to where the minutes live.
Right, but didn't we have a presentation that were not part of our preparation that we were seeing fresh at the meeting? Wasn't there a PowerPoint presentation?
About future agenda items?
Yeah, I'm confused. Where are you at, Jamie?
He's on information items.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, I take it.
Oh, yeah, we didn't, I don't know, I think we just discussed.
I think it was a
potential-
discussion. I don't recall
Yeah,
there
I
being
don't- there wasn't
And a
PowerPoint.
PDF with a little chart of usually what is happening in
Oh,
the
on future,
future.
yeah, you're right.
Right.
There's a little,
Which is the,
the graph.
yes.
Right, exactly.
right.
So I think no PowerPoint. So what are you saying?
Okay.
That you want the PowerPoints attached?
You know what? The point I'm making is about point 3, not point 5.
Okay.
And the presentation that we were given, in paragraph 2, the staff planning aide, Brian, presented the staff report and PowerPoint. And they were not attached to our agendas before we came to the meeting. They were presented to us at the meeting. And so were it not, if we don't attach printouts of the PowerPoints which were presented in this item, there will be no record of what was contained in the PowerPoints.
I see. That's something that could be, so it's not provided to you in advance because
Right.
it's made available at the meeting.
Right,
It's something that could be attached to either the agenda. We'll have to work with the technology staff to
and
see
print 'em
what the
out.
best thing to do is.
yeah.
But there's a way to attach the materials to make sure that the public has a copy of the
That's,
PowerPoint. That's what you would
I'm
like.
sorry, that was what,
Okay.
I jumped ahead to 5, and that was not
Sure.
the point of
The
5.
Brown Act also requires that, so it's something that we can definitely look into.
Right.
So the PowerPoint needs to be attached to the packet? Is that what you're
It
saying?
doesn't, no, it doesn't have to be attached to the packet. It just has to be made available to the public when we make it available to the commission.
Oh,
So, but if you want it attached,
so it just needs to be part of the agenda? So when you.
No, it needs to be
Well,
part of the
no,
minutes.
no,
It needs to be
because-
part of the minutes.
sometime, well,
In other words, Brian came in, did the presentation. It was the first time we had seen any of that. It was not distributed beforehand. It was fine. It was a good presentation. But in recording the minutes, we and the people in the room were exposed to something that was very ephemeral because it was just a PowerPoint. It was not printed.
Right.
And anybody who was trying to go through and find, well, what was the presentation about?
Isn't that on the video?
Yeah, it is on the video.
Yeah.
I think you need to understand something. The PowerPoint wasn't something different from what was
No,
presented.
it's
and
like a summary.
It never is. It's typically a summary, and it's taking that information, boiling it down to a simplistic piece,
I understand.
where the full breadth of detail is provided in the agenda report as well as through the resolution,
Because
typically.
it's on YouTube, it's online.
It is, and not only that, but we keep a record of those PowerPoints, and they're made available as needed, so.
Okay, so then I think we should put after it, not attached. No. No, that's right.
It has not been a practice to attach those
Yeah,
PowerPoints.
we've had a lot of PowerPoints,
Just pass
No,
it down.
okay.
but good points, Jamie, thank you.
No, they weren't.
No, they were great, what are you talking about? All right, cool.
Where are we? Do you need a motion to accept the minutes?
Yeah, we need a motion.
I
Well,
so
we're
At the
moved.
discussion.
moment,
Okay.
We'll
accept
let
them.
Jamie do
Yeah.
that.
All right, I'll make a motion to that.
Make a motion, okay, all right,
Second.
okay. Can we get a roll call, Sherry?
Bennett,
Yes,
Murphy,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Chesley,
Yes.
Graham.
Yes.
All right, okay, so on to disclosure of site visits, ex parte contacts. I've visited the sites, but I've had no ex parte contacts.
I have not visited the first site at, let's see, 502 South Montgomery Street, but I have visited the AT&T parking lot maybe 2-3 months ago when I met with, I believe it was Jeremy at the El Roblar Hotel about the spa. We actually went and toured the parking lot as an additional parking space that they may look to rent or to buy.
All right. Jonathan?
I walked by the parking lot. That's all.
Okay, okay.
I have visited both sites. No ex parte communication.
And I visited both sites and had no conversations with anyone about them.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So we're on to public hearing, item number 2, design review permit at, let's see, where is it? The 502 South Montgomery Street. Do we have a staff report? Oh, there it is. Look at that. Hey, it's a PowerPoint.
Is it attached or not?
All right, let's see. I think the feedback's a little better this time, so thanks whoever is orchestrating that. Thanks everyone for being here this evening. I am Brian Shermer, a planning aide for the Community Development Department, and today I will be presenting before this body a design review permit at 502 South Montgomery Street to demolish an existing residence and to newly construct the new proposed residence. Next slide, please. All right, so this site, as I said, is located at 502 South Montgomery Street, and it is zoned Village Mixed Use, and the general plan designation is also Village Mixed Use. The lot size is 41,394 square feet, and it is surrounded by other residential uses, as well as two tennis courts on either side, east and west. And the reason that this application is being processed as a design review permit is because the subject property is designated as village mixed use. Otherwise, a single-story new residence such as the one being proposed typically wouldn't require a design review permit, but because of the special zoning, it does, which is why we are here today. And so next slide, please. And all right, and more information on the site itself as it stands today. The existing primary residence, it has 2 beds and 1 bath, single story. And it is 1,500 square feet with a 600 square foot garage. It has a ranch style disposition, and it is beside a Blue Line Creek. And you may ask, what is a Blue Line Creek? Well, the USGS has a Blue Line Creek map that designates specific creeks around the country, and this creek, which feeds the San Antonio Creek, just so happens to be one of those creeks. And our city has specific standards regarding development surrounding Blue Line creeks, which is outlined in section 10.2.10.4, that all structures shall be set back 25 feet from Blue Line creeks. Which includes buildings, decks, and fences. And so the proposed residence will be designed in modern ranch style and will include a detached garage with a ADU attached to the detached garage. And to note, the ADU is not included in this design review process, as those are typically processed ministerially by staff. through a simple zone clearance, but we mention it as a part of the agenda report just for context because it is included in this development. Next slide, please. And so as I mentioned before, you can see the creek detailed much more clear in this site plan. There it is to the south, and as you can see, all proposed development is set back 25 feet from the Blue Line Creek. You can see the primary residence to the right on the east side of the property, and you can see the pool right there, just adjacent. And then to the west, there is the detached garage, which includes the ADU attached just to the right of the garage, or on the east side of the garage. And the site is accessed from South Montgomery Street, pictured west, via the long access drive, as indicated in red, right there. All right, next slide, please. And so what is proposed is a 3,422 square foot primary residence with 3 beds and 5.5 baths, the 518 square foot detached garage, 505 square foot ADU, accessory dwelling unit, attached to the garage, and the 1,560 square foot pool, which includes a spa and a cold plunge. And as I mentioned before, it will be designed in a modern ranch theme. And the proposed structures will remain just a single story, consistent with Land Use Policy 10, keeping openness and preserving views present in Ojai. The design will involve a neutral color palette, which would complement the surrounding landscape, while also offering a architecturally contrasting style to complement the surrounding neighborhood. Go next slide. And here is the colors and material board, and you can see the proposal more clearly with these colored renderings. As I mentioned, the colors and materials chosen give the proposed structure a very neutral disposition. Next slide. And here's the floor plan to the right. I know obscured by details, but you can make out the primary residence, and it's 5.5 baths and 3 beds. And just to the left of that, approximately where it is located on the site plan, is the detached garage and the ADU. Next slide, please.
Oh, very cool.
And here are the elevations of both proposed structures, respectively. To the right is the primary residence with each corresponding cardinal direction depicted. And to the left is the detached garage and ADU with those same cardinal directions depicted. Next slide, please. And here is a much clearer depiction of those same elevations, however, at different angles. But you can make out the primary structure on the top image. That is looking east from the west at the end of the access drive at the front entrance of the primary residence. And just below that, you can make out the garage looking north, and the ADU just adjacent to the right of the garage door. And the 2 renderings on the left, you can see the pool behind the primary residence, that's looking west, and the north side of the primary residence and the ADU, that's looking south, just below the image with pool. Next slide, please. And in the standards for the zoning designation village mixed use, the proposed development meets all of the standards set forth in this section. It meets setbacks, site coverage, the height limit, and the parking requirements, as you can see in the zoning consistency table. And so we recommend this body to open the public hearing, accept public testimony, then close the public hearing, and to adopt a resolution approving the associated design review permit, which are subject to the findings and conditions of approval outlined in the attached resolution. And thank you. Any questions?
Um,
Back?
Yeah, any questions for staff before we
I've got
open it up?
several. Sorry.
No, you're good.
That's okay.
In the page 2 of 7 of your report, you say that there is a 518 square foot detached garage, including 2 covered parking spaces. Are the 2 included in the garage, or are they a separate?
They're included in the
In the
garage,
garage.
yeah.
Could I
Yeah.
suggest that the word including be changed to incorporating?
Yes, yeah.
Because the 2 spaces are in there. I went looking to see, was there a covered area, and there was that. In the next paragraph, after the box, the site layout, it says in one sentence that the setback shall be 25 feet from the nearest Blue Line Creek. And then the next sentence, it says, all proposed, I'm sorry, 2 sentences ahead, all proposed development is approximately set back 5 feet from the top of the creek. And so, which is it? Is it 5 feet or 20 feet?
Yeah, it's 25 feet, yeah, that was,
So
error, I
that
guess,
should be
yeah.
changed to 25 feet,
mhm.
okay.
that wasn't catch, thank you.
Okay. Are we gonna have a separate discussion of landscaping, or is that incorporated in the remarks you've already made?
Yeah, so included in the submittal package, the attachment D, there is a landscape plan, which includes a tree protection plan.
Could you tell us what Molello, what that word is, what the acronym is?
It comes up later in the.
Oh, MWELO?
Yeah, on page 4 of the landscaping. I'm just not.
resolution.
It comes up later.
It's
'Cause I had that same
MWELO.
question.
Maximum efficiency water.
Oh,
Water
okay,
thing.
great, water. I just think the first time you use a new term, or term new to us, that you might want to spell it out. I can see this municipal water district, are there separate water meters being called out for this or not? For the ADU and for the main house?
Yes, yeah, there will be two separate
Two
water
separate, is that
allocations.
required? I don't know if with ADUs you need a separate water meter.
It is not required, however, when you do ADU, you have that option. If they're renting it, you typically end up doing separate water meters.
Right, but then you need a whole separate process of plumbing the area if you are going to have a separate water meter. And I just wondered whether you.
Potentially.
whether we were doing that or not. Okay, and then, I don't know if this is a question, but it may be later, and I may be told to push this into the discussion section. There is no, this house is on Montgomery, and it's the first house on the right that you approach if you're coming up off of Creek Road. Traffic moves at an unbelievable pace through there. And there's no pullover before you make your right turn, and it's right at the curb. So the question is, and this is really more to Lucas, is it appropriate for, and are we allowed to, make a recommendation and have a discussion with the owner and architect as to whether a pullover can be put on Montgomery so that the person who is turning at a 90-degree angle doesn't have to stop on Montgomery, where people are coming around the corner and are gonna see this thing and could hit a car that was turning into it.
Let's leave that discussion for,
Yeah, this discussion item.
All right, okay. It's my notes.
Remember that, though. We'll come
Yeah.
back to it.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Anybody else? Questions for staff?
We've covered it.
Are there requirements, I saw requirements for, I forget what the exact where it was. There was a specific requirement regarding some silt fencing based on some section. Are there requirements for silt fencing along this top of bank perimeter while construction is happening? I'm assuming there's concerns for how it impacts the Blue Line Creek below.
you're talking along the southeast side.
Yeah, where the 25-foot setback starts.
There will be a requirement for them to meet MS4 as new construction would allow for. So sandbags and things of that nature to whisk
Capture.
away, to whisk away any water, because we were in the rainy season still.
Yeah. Well, and also requires during demolition and stuff to actually spray down the site, so you're.
Yeah, that's a part of the BMPs or the
Right,
best management
which means you're
practices.
creating water. I'm just wondering, like, how, we don't want debris obviously falling into that creek of any kind, so.
Correct.
Okay.
Divert.
I just wasn't sure if that was something that was, clearly stipulated, or.
It's typically covered under the general, so we're looking at the design piece
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
the construction piece. The
Okay,
construction piece will cover
That's taken care of in,
those
like, the
BMPs.
civil drawings or whatever.
Correct.
Okay, great. The other question I have, you stated it was a modern ranch style house. What is, I think some of these styles are a little more clear in a sense, like mission style. Well, there's a lot of examples. Is there like how do you assess that? How do you assess that? I mean, where is it that we know, or where someone might know what that means?
Yeah, I think that's a better question for the architect who is here. I'm just pulling the language from the submission
Got it.
package. Yeah.
Perfect.
I feel like my fellow commissioners asked a lot of the similar questions that I had, so I guess the only question that I have is really around setback standards, anything else to do with Blue Line creeks from like a state and federal perspective. Have we looked at any requirements or restrictions around that in drafting this report and this guidance?
So the Creekside development standards provisions that are baked into our code as it stands is based on the USGS definition of the Blue Line Creek, which is a federal agency.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, here.
I'll answer so the 25-foot setback is something that the city has baked into those
Totally get
standards.
that.
There isn't necessarily a federal requirement from a minimum standpoint. Ours is the stricter of the standard.
And is there any state laws, like Cal EPA, anything like that governs building next to a Blue Line Creek development?
Not that we've seen. These are really the stricter standards.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
One last question: Are there any requirements as far as planting for privacy that we have to consider for the VMU lots around the perimeter?
There are no specific standards for planting for privacy. However, I don't know if you happen to visit the site. There is existing screening provided by the trees on the street side of the property. However,
Can I just add on to that? In our ordinance, there are no requirements for hedges, for fences, for walls to be built. However, when you propose those, we have standards. Like, for instance, along the edge of the property within sides or rears, the maximum height is 6 feet. In the front yard, the maximum height is 4 feet.
And it does state that there is a wood fence on the north side of the property facing the neighbor, correct? Yeah, okay.
yes, yeah, that's corr't.
And it's fairly typical with developments like this to put fences and hedges of
Yeah.
that nature.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, anybody else? No? Okay. We'll open it up to the public. I have two speakers on this matter. One is the applicant, so I'll save the applicant, because you don't necessarily need a speaker card. But Julia Tolman,
Oh, wait.
public comment, right? What do you mean, wait?
You
Hang on,
you
hang
might
on, Julie.
wanna- You might want to give the applicant time to talk and
Oh,
then ask
And then,
for
and then
public.
public? Okay, I didn't know if we wanted to go to public first, but that's
That's
fine. Okay,
fine.
we can do that. All right, so we'll have the applicant come up and speak. So I have Ted. Thank you, appreciate it.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity to bring this project forward to you this evening. And I want to compliment you on your process. You know, it might have been easier if it were a shorter process, but it's a good process. So I want to compliment you there. And I want to also thank Brian. Brian was very helpful. And I think he's got a great future. We totally concur with the conditions as brought forward in the staff report and the findings. And basically, I'm just here to answer questions that you might have. There were some questions that were brought up, and I can try to answer those now. And the first one that I heard was about MWILO, and that is water reduction. And those calculations have been made. Bill Millett is our landscape architect, a very fine local landscape architect. He's also an arborist. We have several heritage trees, oaks, on the property that we are protecting. And then there was a question about erosion control. And that's part of the grading plan. And we have 4 sheets dealing with erosion control and grading and making sure. And there's one thing, the intention is I've designed the project and I'm going to build it. And one thing I know is that I don't want anything going down that bank or out into the street. As far as the comment made about a sort of a de-acceleration to make the turn in, we can adjust the driveway opening. The interesting thing about the property is that the first 100 feet off of the street is actually owned by the city of Ojai. And so we are getting, and we've talked to Public Works about the access, and we will work with them, and we're happy to make that driveway approach wider. The question about modern ranch style. That was a good question. What makes this, I think, a ranch-style house is the form of it and how it's not a box. It's spread out, and it was created that way because of the site. The site is large. It's almost an acre. It's 90.95 hundredths of an acre. But by the time you take out for the trees and stay away from the trees, stay away from the bank, have the other setbacks, And then also your fire requirements and for access. It really forces the shape into something other than just a box. And that also fit with the owner's wishes. There are three things that went into the design of this residence. One is it's a family, and the family has 2 children, one teenage, one early 20s. They're very athletic, and all the members of the family are extremely athletic. So there are 3 competitive swimmers, and that's why the big swimming pool. Also, members are really into yoga, and so that's why the yoga room. And then the room that we call the pool room is really a game room for the children. And the idea is that if you can bring your friends here, we know what's going on. And we'd rather have your friends at our house than our children at somebody else's house that we don't know. So it becomes modern, get back to the question of ranch in form, modern in style. And, you know, there's probably other titles for it. There's almost an unlimited number of styles and titles, and you're right, certain styles are very much easier to peg than this, but this really grew out of, besides family and fitness, was also the natural, the site really dictated it. And we wanted as much glass as we could get to focus on the site. It's not particularly a view property where we have large windows looking at Topa Topa, but rather we want to see that slope going down and the bank going up. And the first few times I was on the site, there were deer grazing and hawks and owls. And I guess that's, those are the questions I heard. I'm here to answer any other questions, and perhaps if you have another speaker that has questions, I can come back and address those questions.
Thank you, Ed. I had a couple questions. So on the site plan that you guys provided, there's obviously you have the entryway, and it looks like those are going to be pavers. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it looks like the driveway itself is going to be pavers. And around the pool, is that also going to be paver material?
That's not going to be pavers there. That's going to be the whole floor of the house is a wood plank. And but outside, we're going to, I think the intention is we're going to use a porcelain that is going to mimic the wood plank. So it'll be, it'll stand up to the elements,
Yeah.
but it'll be a very enhanced patio.
Is it going to be like permeable? I mean, water can get through cracks? No?
No.
Okay. Does it allow for some sort of irrigation, or does the water just
Well,
pool?
that's a really good question. What we intend to do is, as part of our grading plan as well, we have a drainage plan.
Okay.
And so we have to drain everything, and we're not going to drain anything into the creek.
Sure.
And what we want to do is actually put in some tanks to conserve water.
So like gray water capture,
Yeah, and that, actually stormwater capture.
stormwater capture, yeah.
And then we have talked about gray water as
Yeah,
well.
too. Okay, good. All
Yeah.
right, awesome. Okay, good. And I, just because this is a topic of discussion, and I believe we do have fire hardening procedures in the conditions, but I just wanted to quickly ask you about, did you look at like the CAL FIRE requirements around fire hardening?
Yes.
And that's part of it.
Yes. Yes.
Noticed your eaves were enclosed, which is great.
Right. No, we'll meet all of the city standards for fire, and then we also get reviewed by the fire department. And we've been in negotiation with the fire department for like the last 3 months.
Okay.
So we will, and there are requirements with regard to landscaping.
Yes.
And once again, Bill, unfortunately, he couldn't be here tonight. He's out of town, but he's very familiar with that, and he will be producing a landscape plan that the fire department and the city will be happy with.
Okay, okay. And I noticed, because you do have, and this will probably come up as the fire department reviews it, but the wood fence, is it connected to the house?
No,
Oh, okay. all right.
it's a minimum of 10 feet away.
Oh, okay, good, never mind then. All right. we're
And
good
it's an
there.
existing fence, and we just didn't see any reason to tear it down and
Yeah, yeah, I
build a
mean,
new fence.
it's in good shape,
Yeah,
that's all
it's
good.
it's in good shape. The other thing that's interesting about this house, this is actually pretty hard to see from the street.
Mm-hmm.
So it will disappear, basically.
And I did note you do have fencing around the pool.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's a requirement.
Yep. And is it, what kind?
And I
what
don't know
type
if you got to see the fencing, but it's
I-
very good-looking
I
fencing.
didn't see the fencing. What kind of fencing is
It's
it?
glass
Glass.
panels.
Okay, good. All right, cool. And then finally, the gate. I noticed that you guys are gonna have the gate there. And it mentions that there's a sign saying that fire
Right, that
department's
was
not allowed.
part of the negotiation. Fire department has all kinds of access rules.
Yeah,
What I've learned, it only took me about 50 years to learn this, that the first thing you need to do when you're designing a project is go to the fire department,
yeah,
because they shape your project.
Yeah.
And if you have a fully formed project, it may get reshaped.
right.
So we had, like I say, about 3 months of actually back and forth with the fire department. We meet all of their criteria in terms of length of driveway to where they can park. And then they have a hose pull, and they need to be able to get any part of that house in either direction within 250 feet. So we meet all of those. But what we did with that sign is, because the fire department said, well, what if the truck goes through the gate, and the gate has to have a mechanism that lets the truck through? What if the truck goes through the gate, and then the truck has a hard time turning around? And so, as part of our negotiation, we said, okay, we're gonna put a sign there that says, basically to the fire department, stop here.
Don't go through the gate.
Don't go through the gate.
Okay, that's what that
And the
was.
second thing was that we've agreed to interior sprinkling that goes beyond the minimum.
Okay,
We're sprinkling everything.
right, okay, good.
The owners are very concerned about fire.
Well, rightfully so.
And there won't be any exposed wood on the house.
Okay, good, awesome. Let's go ahead.
I've got a couple of questions, and some of them have just been answered, and that is the oddest sign. I've never seen a submission of that sign before, and I couldn't figure out why now. And
Yeah.
so you're saying, because the other question was, as you look at the plans, there's a hairpin turn on the driveway.
Right.
And I thought,
The fire department-
fire department's not gonna like that. You can't, there's no hammerhead turn there
Right.
that allows them to pull that truck once it goes up the driveway, back
Right.
down the driveway.
Right.
And so that's what it's about. Thank you very much.
Yes, they were satisfied with the sign.
And I'm very impressed that the owner wants to put in sprinklers throughout the house. That's very unusual to see in a plan like this. And hold on, there's one more question here. I don't know whose choices these were. They're very nice. But I'm sort of surprised that you aren't using a Corten steel as opposed to a painted brown steel. And why you're not using, let me just see what the other one was. There was one other, why the stucco does not have impregnated color in the stucco itself, so you don't have to paint it. I'm just curious about the questions, not,
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I can't answer that question.
okay.
Because the owners hired a consultant just for those finishes.
Oh.
And so I really don't know exactly why those decisions were made like that.
Right. And they're more the ones I'm suggesting are more natural
Yeah.
than
Yeah,
putting in a.
and I'm sure that we could accomplish what we want to accomplish with the stucco, with the color in the stucco in a typical fashion and not painted. And would you have a problem with that, Dave?
No, I'm not asking you to do that. That's up to you.
Okay.
Honestly. I was just curious as
Yeah,
to
yes.
if there was a rationale.
And I like the idea about Corten. I think maybe the thinking was it's a little bit more finished, the material that's using as, you know. I love Corten, but a lot of people don't like the feel of it.
Yeah, okay.
I had one more quick question. Attachment C, page 3 of 7. There's a call out, and it's regarding the stucco color, but it was more of a question about what is the purpose of this room. I was trying to find it. I think I know the answer, but I wanted to just confirm it. It's the one of the rooms that's facing the pool. It's on the oh gosh, what would be direction would that be?
South, maybe?
South? Yeah, is this south
Yeah,
facing?
it's on the left of
It's on
the
the
picture.
left. Yeah, it's on the left of the
Far
picture.
left of the.
Anyway, there's 2 sliding glass doors, and I believe that's a master bedroom. Is that correct?
Yes,
That is the master
yes,
bedroom.
that's the
Okay.
master bedroom.
Got it. So
Okay.
that's your answer.
Yeah, that's the southeast corner.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, cool. And then the other building that's facing out, that's the pool house. Looks like. Okay. I was
Yes.
just trying to get my bearings. All right, that makes sense. Okay, cool. Anybody else have questions for the applicant? No?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ed. Okay, so now we'll open it up for public comment. And I have one speaker card here for item number 2, and that's Julie, sorry. Thank you, Julie.
Good evening, commissioners and staff and public and those who may be watching. My name is Julie Tumamayat Stensley. I'm Chumash elder, raised here in the Ojai Valley. I like the style names. My house is called Older.
So is mine.
I'm here, I love the idea and I love the plan. It's the process that I want to talk about. And so with the archaeological report that came in a while back ago, I did comment on the process of the archaeologist. So there's some language in the report here that says that there wasn't any archaeological items found on the property, which is not true. What has been said is that when the archaeologist did the report, he said that there were 2 items that were found. He had a picture of one, but no picture of the other. And he didn't substantiate why he said they were imported onto the property. So yeah, I know for a fact that one of them, I wasn't with it at the moment, but the person who was renting the property called me the next day and said, look, this is like right here in the backyard. And the other one, we don't know what it was. I believe it was just a small shard, but there was no image or picture. So I really argue his findings and how the language as it came out here. For some of you, I don't recognize you. I hardly ever come to planning meetings. But we did a resolution, and I'm wondering just how many of you have seen it and read it. We did this, it took us 3.5 years, 2015, something like that. It's in the website, and it describes the process of how we were doing archaeological consultation on projects that lent itself to sensitivities here in the valley, which some of our some of our sites date as far back as 12,000 years, and as recent as 220 years ago, we were still in our village settings. So what I would like to see on the project is the earth-disturbing activities, which includes and will include the demolition of the house. It's on, we're on a very highly sensitive area right now in this neighborhood. So I'd like to see both an archaeologist and a native monitor at all times on this property through the earth-disturbing activities. And other than that, I am founder and former chair of the Barbareño Ventureño Band of Mission Indians. I am not in the process of now anymore consulting on these projects. I don't know if there's been any consultations on projects now. Not sure. I kind of had a little birdie tell me there is not, and it worries me. It worries me that the tribal chair right now, I don't know if we're not getting notices. My brother and I, we've been cut off completely from the tribal group in consultation. So I'm going to be pretty present here, you know, reading and keeping up to things. I love the project. I'm all for our community members to have this beautiful home built on this property. I just want to see process correctly and according to the resolution, including the 5 years of experience for archaeologists and monitors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate it. All right. Sherry, anybody online?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. No hands raised?
Nope.
Okay. We'll move on to discussion. Anybody have anything?
The fact that this is a flag lot was mentioned somewhere in here. I take it that the driveway is the pole of the flag, and that the rest of the front yard belongs to the city. Is that correct?
No, so the majority of the driveway is actually within the public right-of-way, and the actual property itself doesn't start until several feet to the east of Montgomery Street. Yeah, it's better depicted on the site plan.
84 feet.
So is it fair to say where the dotted line is?
Yeah, it's 84 feet from South Montgomery Street is where the property line starts.
But where the dotted line is, that's, I don't know how many feet down that is, but essentially that's the public piece, the start of the driveway, and then where the dotted line is,
Is where the private property starts. Yes,
that's
correct.
the start of the flag that goes down the rest of the 84
So
feet.
there is no flag. It is just simply a square
Okay,
shaped
but what about-
lot,
This is in the right of way.
or roughly a
That's what I
square.
was asking about right here, and he's saying,
So is it true that
Whole thing here.
the city is going to grant an easement across the property for the driveway, or is it a prescriptive easement because it's been used as a driveway for years, or what's the?
Sorry, I thought it was on. It's less of an easement and more of an access piece, because really, while South Montgomery Street is looks like it's about maybe 50 feet wide, the area that is the public right of way is much larger.
Yeah.
So it's really not necessarily granting an easement; it's just granting access to the public right of way, and that really starts where you're seeing that dotted line. It's like
But is
84.
the property owner going to have a right to use the public land to get to the street?
Correct. Now that could
It's not called an easement, it's called, something
it's just access. So it'd be
well, they're gonna pay.
and basically an encroachment permit for them to gain access
Okay.
to
There'll
Montgomery
be a
Street.
recorded element which allows them to continue to use this.
I don't think it would be recorded in the sense of what we're talking about here. Because you're basically granting access to a road that already exists, a public road that already exists. The public right of way itself fans out and then narrows itself as you go further along Montgomery Street. So here, there's a much larger swath that is, at least that's what I'm seeing here, that's of the public right of way, which is the city's, and then we're providing them access, or at least allowing them the access to Montgomery Street.
The reason I bring this up is Jamie's point earlier, that's a very dangerous location to have to stop your car virtually to make this turn, and I don't know what would be required to make that safer. And is the city going to be willing to go along with whatever that is, whether it's space to pull over?
Right, so you're talking like a turn pocket or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Since it's the city's,
Yeah.
you know, we should all be able to figure out a way to
Right.
make this safer.
What I would recommend is putting some sort of a condition, requesting that the Public Works Department evaluate the entrance and access along, really kind of vehicles traveling north along Montgomery Street.
Well, and since essentially that's our land, meaning the community's land, and they are being granted an access to their house from the street across this public land.
Yeah, so anytime that you're doing new construction, there is an opportunity for Public Works to place additional requirements after review and analysis.
Right, but can we, as a planning commission, say that we want the Public Works Department to put in a turn-off lane there, or a slip lane or something? 'Cause,
So I think what Lucas is saying is allowing staff give staff a condition that allows them the flexibility to find a solution that works towards your goal, where we're not mandating something at this meeting without the correct department weighing in.
Right.
Right? Public Works isn't here. They have their own requirements and things that need to be met. So what you can do is give feedback to Public Works that this is the direction that you would like it to go. You have concerns about this turn.
Yep.
You'd like parameters put around the access to make it safer, and then staff can work with the applicant outside of this meeting to try to accomplish that goal within the rules and regulations that they have.
So Public Works to evaluate access, do we need to say Public Works and staff, or is that?
Public Works and staff, yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of the same.
Yeah.
Public
One of the
Works
same.
and staff is one of the same.
They are the staff.
All right,
That works.
All right,
all right.
thank you.
Okay.
Anything else? No?
No.
Not yet? Okay. Anything? No? I do have a quick question regarding the Native American consultant and the archaeologist. I know we do have conditions in here for cultural resources. So I just wanted to make sure that what we have in here covers what Julie was recommending through the demolition of the site as well as the building of the site. I believe we do, but I just wanted to double check.
Don't
I
we
give the-
always?
Yes, this is a standard condition for
Yeah.
all new construction, yes. Anytime that you're doing any sort of grading activities. And the history of the piece, to Julie's point, yes, started in 2015 through a resolution, and then was updated in 2018. It's the resolution we've been using. And it was a partnership with the city council and the tribal chair essentially at that time, which was Julie, as well as the rest of the council.
Got it. Yeah, I think that is condition 38, where,
Yeah, it's 38, and it follows through
yeah, it follows through 47.
40s, yeah, all the way through 46.
46, yeah, you're right, 46. Yeah.
So they have to have both the tribal chair and the archaeologist?
So here's the way in
On-site
which the standard
during-
conditions read. So once we do a phase one, that phase one then determines, and that's part of our process, whether there's additional analysis necessary given the site conditions, or a monitor be on site during grading activities. If, and this is then leads into, I believe, the 39 or 40, if artifacts are found, then the archaeologist is brought in and work is halted at that point.
Okay, I see. So 38 is basically we have a cultural monitor on site during the grading phase, but not necessarily the archaeologist.
Correct.
Got it.
Okay.
She's requesting both be on site through the entire phase. That's not necessarily a part of our process,
Yeah,
as a part of our standard process, and wasn't identified through the phase one.
right. But we could make that part of a revised condition if we wanted to.
You could.
Got it.
Staff's not recommending it as a part of standard process, but if the commission feels led, then yes.
Do we
Does
have
the
a
tri-
copy of the phase one?
The copy of the phase one is kept in-house. It's not something that's shared with the public.
Does the tribal chair always come to earth-moving sites, to sites where earth-moving is happening?
It's a cultural monitor, not the tribal chair. So we
Cultural
have a
monitor.
list
Okay.
of qualifying cultural monitors that we hand out and provide to general contractors that are doing work.
Okay.
So not necessarily a Native American consultant, but a cultural monitor, or are those one and the same? I don't know.
Wait, say it again. What was the
Is
first
there a
one?
Native American consultant? I was trying to use.
One and the
Julie's
same.
words. One and the same? Okay, perfect.
Cultural monitor.
Cultural monitor.
Okay.
It's the phrase that's used in the resolution.
Yeah, okay.
The resolution from 2018.
All right. Anything else? Other discussions?
That tree that is supposed to be in the wraparound, that is a tree that you're going to plant?
Yes.
Okay. It was hard to tell because I didn't walk the property, I just drove up to the property where these protected trees are. To the left are 3, and then there are 2 really big.
Oh, yeah. Those are existing?
I think that this is existing and they have to protect.
Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
protection.
Yeah,
Right.
those are protected, yeah, it's right there.
Okay. And are you going to have an arborist on site to do that protection? And a
Yes.
fence and all that
Yes,
good stuff?
We actually have a plan already prepared, showing the protection for the trees, and we will have the arborist on site.
Good.
And
Okay.
I've already talked to the soils engineer as well, to make sure that whatever we have to do, preparing the soil isn't gonna damage the trees.
And I didn't see it in here, you're not removing any trees though, right?
No,
Yeah, I
no.
didn't think so. Okay, just double checking. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Since you're back up, I'm going to take advantage of this. The cart, I assume it's a golf cart that's going to go there.
Right.
Is that
Yes.
So it's really it's a 3-vehicle garage.
Yes.
And I think, again, this is wonderful that the family would like to put a golf cart on the property. And I assume go up to Ojai Avenue on a golf cart as
Yep.
opposed to using a car. It wasn't called out, I don't think, I couldn't read the plans to see, but are there any skylights in this planning?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
Yeah, we're actually using solar tubes
Right.
instead of skylights
Yeah.
because they're more efficient and less energy wasteful.
All right, okay, thank you.
What is a plunge pool? What is the cold plunge pool or
Yes.
something?
That is located by the sauna, and so after you get really, really hot in the sauna, you jump into a freezing cold pool and you get rejuvenated.
That's not at the end of, is it at the end of the, I trust you on that. Doesn't sound,
Doesn't
But
sound
anyway.
fun, but, okay.
is that at the end of the pool? Or is it
No,
elsewhere?
it's by the, it's the northeast corner of the house.
Okay,
It's right next to the sauna.
okay.
Yeah, so it's as depicted on the landscape plan. You can see, yeah, they had to move it in a later submission.
Cool.
I don't see it.
And I apologize, while you're up here, you did say that you guys are open to having gray water capture.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. And obviously, you guys do have stormwater harvesting plans as well.
Oh, yes.
Okay, cool, perfect.
And we are also going to, the way the house is designed, we can put a lot of solar on the roof, and it won't be seen, because we have parapets that will hide that. So you won't see the solar, but we're gonna maximize the solar.
Okay, great.
And where would the storage tanks go, the water storage?
Well,
I
Why-
assume gravity gets,
yes, so
Into
there's
this.
a really good spot right in front of the gate on their side. Everything's gonna drain to there.
okay,
Now, and we won't be draining everything surface, we will be picking it up with drain lines and catch basins along the way, but we'll get it into there.
what happens to that water once it's in there?
Oh, we pump it out and we use it to landscape
Landscape?
water.
Okay,
have a question about the porcelain. Does that get slippery when it gets wet?
Which, oh, the
Porcelain.
porcelain. Oh, great question. It has a texture. Porcelain, there are products now that they're making for flooring that are just fantastic. They look exactly like the wood that we're using on the inside, and they have a texture to it, the grain. So yes, we don't want anybody slipping.
All right.
All right.
The glass fence,
Yes.
is it glass that just
Yes.
won't break, kind of like
It's-
my
no,
iPhone
it's-
glass?
It's tempered, yes. It's produced by a company called Aquaview, and this is what they do. They make these panels, and they're the least intrusive of any way to protect the pool or protect people from the pool.
Okay. Well, it all sounds beautiful to me. Huge improvement over what's there. I'm sure the whole neighborhood will be very pleased with this project.
We hope so.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Ed. Okay, any other discussion? No? Any motions?
I move that we accept the plan as submitted with the modifications that Judy will read to us now.
Okay, let's talk about, these are additional conditions, correct?
Well, it's just one, because I
Okay.
think we're following the standard process for the cultural monitor, unless you
I wanted to add,
add a
yeah,
condition there.
I did. I wanted to add a condition under 38 that
Okay.
we would also include the archaeologist. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm like, why am I reading this wrong? So if we could include that language in 38, that would be great.
Okay, and I would like to place a condition in which the staff, including Public Works, evaluates the safety of the driveway in order to improve the safety of the entrance to vehicle traffic. Or however you want to say that better.
No, but it's the northbound traffic
Yeah.
on Montgomery.
That entrance
That
is
entrance, yeah.
on the curve, right.
I'm
And then-
curious, why does the archaeologist need to be there at the outset? We've got the cultural monitor, was not proposed by staff. I'm ignorant of any of this, and so I really am asking,
Yeah.
why would we want an archaeologist and a cultural monitor?
I think it's during the grading phase, that's the critical piece. During when the destruction of the current house and the grading of the dirt, I think that's where they'd like to have an additional pair of eyes. And Julie, I'm ignorant to this, so I don't know if you can speak to that a little bit more? Yeah.
Before Julie gets up there, I can probably
Oh.
give a little more context.
sorry.
Right now, the home itself was on a raised foundation, so there hasn't been the excavation that you would have seen with a home that's on a slab. So that's the difference. And I know I've had conversations with Julie as well as the current chair in regards to that. Anytime that you have a house that's on pillars versus a house that's on a foundation, the excavation just doesn't happen there. In addition to that, there's a pool going in,
True.
and that tends to have a little more excavation as well.
Julie, you implied
Yeah, sorry, come on up,
that-
Julie. Just so
that
she can
this
speak in.
area was particularly utilized by the tribes.
We have several areas throughout the valley, but this area seems to be quite sensitive. There's it's a long story. I don't want to, we can do something separately. I'd love to do a program for you guys. But the difference between the archaeologist and the native monitor is that the archaeologist comes from the standpoint of scientifically delineating the find and putting it into context of measuring, dating, where the monitor is coming in with the, not so much the science, but the significance, that it's important to us. Now, some people might say, oh, look, it's a piece of shell. That is really significant. Well, I wouldn't say that personally. but some may. But if there's, other items that are relatable, like we were makers of shell bead money, that would indicate perhaps a shrine spot where people were making offerings and praying, so it's a religious site, just for hypothetically. They don't have the scientific or educational background to do the type of archaeological work if finding. They have, and that's why we have in the resolution the 5-year experience. And so that gives you an idea. We had an archaeologist on site at another job. He was looking for clay pottery shards. The Chumash didn't do pottery. So he was coming from another area. So that's why we made those distinctions of having that experience coming in. 5 years can give a person enough, if they're working steadily. These works are kind of intermittent, so you're not constantly doing monitoring all the time. I'll go for months without monitoring on a job, but I've been doing this for 40 years, so I know what to find, but I still don't have certain techniques in the scientific world to call myself an archaeologist. So, so starting, it can be varied. You could have an archaeologist there and switch things around, that if things are found, then a monitor can come on site. But it depends on the monitor. If the monitor is well-informed and knows what they're doing, it can be kept in that direction also. So, it's open. It's kind of an open-ended thing, but you don't want a monitor there that doesn't have the experience, because the last thing you want is just for something to be destroyed, or, I don't know. It doesn't mean a whole lot to people who are not from the tribe, but it is law, and we've created this, and so we put this resolution in place to protect, following your general plan that says we shall protect Indian villages. So we're just kind of keeping an order of that, that premise there.
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
That part of town, have you found cultural items of significance?
Mhm.
You have.
Yeah. Yeah. The
So
Ojai
that's-
Avenue is a thoroughfare. Our family coming from Santa Cruz Island crossed over to Malibu, came down the 118 into Santa Paula, into the Upper Valley, through Ojai, through Matilaha, and into Cuyama. And then those people went that way, but other people went that way and that way and that way. So, we walked everywhere, and we went and, just, as they call us, hunters and gatherers back then. But these were pit stops, and Ojai is one of the most important places in this part of Ventura County. But there are many more. There's Coastal Island, so.
We would, I don't know if I can speak for the whole commission, but I personally would love the opportunity to have a more in-depth conversation to understand this better. And if the group would like to,
We could
I'll
agendize it
do
as a
that.
presentation,
Sure.
something like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
that would be lovely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Robert,
For
did you have-
staff, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
So we talk about the grading phase of construction in 38, which is where the commission is asking to add in an archaeologist to be present for. But we were talking also about like excavation and actually, digging the pool, digging the trenches for the foundation. Is that considered the grading phase, or is that a completely different piece?
It's grading phase.
Okay, great.
Yep, absolutely.
Grading is any earth disturbance.
Correct. So, yes. Can I also so that looks like that's 38, which would then be slightly rewritten, tweaked to read, and I'll do it, could I do it verbatim?
Yeah.
Okay. The property owner applicant shall provide confirmation that a cultural monitor and archaeologist be on site during grading phase of construction.
How long is a grading phase? Are we talking about a day or a week or a month? What
Look at Ed, he
happens?
just came right up. He knew you were going to ask that question.
Yes,
There you are.
yes. It'll probably be at least 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is what happens. First off, we have the demolition, or the removal of the existing structures. Then, I would imagine the next thing is we're gonna put in a retaining wall along the front property line. And then, we have to do an over-excavation where the footprint of the house and the garage and ADU. And actually, we go beyond the limits of the footprint by about 5 feet. And then we have to dig the pool. So it will be at least 2 weeks of, at least 80 hours of what you would call grading. All of that, I imagine, will take place at one time. I don't think we want to go back and forth, I think. So, and this is a little awkward, but we would be happy to have Julie be our person that monitors it. I don't think anybody else knows better. But the requirement of having a monitor and an archaeologist, that's probably $15,000 additional dollars. So it's not an easy thing for me to just say, let's do that.
Right, okay. All right, something to consider.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm inclined to go with our standard procedure, and I love the idea of inviting Julie to be the monitor and only call in the archaeologist when and if needed.
I'm hesitant to conditioning that when you're assigning a monitor when we have a list.
I would not support one single person. I do think that it should be from a list, and we as like a commission shouldn't be dictating who the cultural
I
monitor
agree.
is.
I just said I thought it was lovely. That's.
Absolutely,
I didn't say it was a requirement.
So I'm curious, are you,
I didn't know.
Yeah. so
Judy, is
let's-
your idea that we don't require an archaeologist in line 38?
Yeah, right.
So can-
Only if and
as
when needed.
So can we include that language? A cultural monitor be on site and an archaeologist as needed? Could we say that?
I think 39 actually does a good job of covering that piece.
Oh, okay, if archaeological resources are discovered.
Are discovered, that's when the monitor would then make contact with the ARC, and then at that point, they'd come on site and assess.
And if the monitor doesn't find any archaeological resources, there's no reason to call.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, so
So-
they're on standby.
So we're back to, so far, just one condition.
Okay, so we're
Are
back to
there
that.
any other?
So strike what I just said. on 38. We're back to the original, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so there was additional condition that I know was being discussed
Public Works.
regarding the traffic piece, which you had
Yes,
mentioned.
yes.
Can I just take a stab
Sure.
at
Yes, stating that?
stating it? So,
Stab it. Go for it.
prior to issuance of a building/grading permit, so either one, evaluate the northbound traffic along Montgomery Street and work with Public Works regarding providing a safe access into the subject site. So safety is your concern there. If you
Yes.
earmark it with safety, that requires then Public Works to do some sort of an assessment or require the applicant to do some sort of an assessment.
Right.
In the case of this, it's likely going to be the applicant providing the justification, which then Public Works would review and evaluate.
It doesn't sound like it should be a problem, and the city owns all that property.
Yes.
Okay.
Could you, we did this thing where Commissioner Bennett started the motion, and then
I
you
don't
all
know.
took
I don't know where it went.
it and made it your own, and I feel like I have 4 seconds right now.
Yeah,
So
we need to redo it.
who is the second?
Well,
How
we don't
about
have-
you,
We don't, I wanted to make a friendly amendment too.
Okay.
If that's okay. I did want to add in on condition 10, which is on attachment A, page 4 of 9, regarding the landscaping irrigation plan. I would like to include gray water capture and reuse and stormwater harvesting in that irrigation plan. You see that? You wanna-
Yeah, but I don't know, you want them,
I want the irrigate, yeah, I want the
gray water
plan
in
to
addition.
have the gray water and the stormwater harvesting plans outlined.
okay.
And I just
Let me
want a
ask,
period in that sentence.
Is it,
You're asking a lot.
Oh, you
No,
drafted
I'm
it, huh?
just kidding.
That is missing a period, that's for sure.
This is
Yeah.
where that
Yeah, it's
gets
on 10.
explained.
I'm just requiring that it's in the plan, that they include the gray water capture and stormwater harvesting. in the
I just want
irrigation.
to clarify, gray water is not a requirement through building.
Yeah.
In the event that they do choose to go in that fashion, the plumbing code provides for the specifics, and there's, I think just recently, through city council, we got a kind of a nice little refresher on the different types of gray water systems that exist
Okay.
through one of the resident landscape
But
architects.
there's nothing in the code which requires gray water.
It's
No.
not.
No.
But if you do go through the gray water provisions, there are standards within the plumbing code for
Right,
that.
right, of course.
Is the same thing true then on stormwater?
Stormwater's a little bit different, in the sense that it's really more tied to MS4 in terms of how those standards are met, and that is more of a percolation piece and then collection piece.
But that's a required, the stormwater, you have to call out,
New single-family residences,
No.
I don't believe that stormwater is an absolute requirement.
really?
Yeah,
Either
there's certain
stormwater, so you're
triggers.
saying either stormwater or gray water are not required by, okay.
Not for single-family. This one's a little bit unusual in the fact that typically with single-story homes, residential homes, it is not before this body. Because of the zoning then dictates that it comes before this body.
It's a big piece of property with a lot of water usage on it. The fact that they're already planning a stormwater capture seems to me that we could put it into
If they're
writing.
planning it,
Yeah, they mentioned
we could condition it. Okay, so they're nodding their heads yes, so
Yeah,
yes, we can.
I don't want
I'm
to
only
start
saying that
inventing,
from the standpoint
I
of,
don't want to start inventing new things to throw into the pot. On the other hand, I think that, I take your point, and I would accept, since I was the proposer of this, accept those amendments that have been suggested by
I think there's just two.
Are we,
Well,
we have
well-
two
We need a
separate
do-over is what I think we need.
We have
'Cause
to
I
go
need-
over these conditions.
Yeah, and I would really love a second.
Okay.
I'll
Or a
second.
volunteer for a
Well,
second.
we need to know what we're
Usually
seconding
do that.
before they can second, right?
Well, we start, okay. So the motion, as I understand it, is to approve the recommendation with, there's two conditions. The first condition, as read by Lucas, was for Public Works,
Yes.
and safety concerns are on the northbound side of the street. The second one was to include plans for gray water capture and stormwater capture, I would say, in compliance with the plumbing code.
I think we can strike gray water.
You're okay striking gray
Yeah,
water?
Would
we
strike
just
gray water.
wanted to include
Just
the
stormwater.
stormwater.
okay.
Okay.
Stormwater would be 51 then.
Right.
Condition 51. Number 50 would be, which is at the end of this resolution, would be the prior to issuance. It would be the safety traffic piece
Okay.
that I just mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Okay.
While we're talking about all this, can we just have one small spelling correction?
You were an English teacher, yes?
No, but it is a problem for me. I don't like misspellings. In the title, approximately just has a flip of the letters.
Oh, poor,
Oh, yeah. Good catch.
line 3, yeah.
Okay. Duly noted.
I think Robert called out too, we need a period on attachment A, page 4 of 9, number 10. That last sentence needs a period.
I second the motion.
Very nice.
Okay. I think we're there.
I think we're there.
Okay.
It was kind of messy, but we got there.
It was collaborative.
All right,
Are we ready?
We are.
Are we ready? Sherry?
We're nothing.
We need a
but
vote.
collaborative.
Bennett,
yes,
Murphy,
Yes.
Graham,
Yes.
Chesley,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes. All right. Good to go.
As Steve would say, go forth,
Go forth. Go forth and conquer.
build, enjoy.
Yes.
great project.
Is that a Star Trek reference? Go forth.
I have no idea. I-
Prosper. That's what it
Go
is.
forth and prosper.
All right.
Okay.
Moving on.
Onward.
Moving on. Item 3, right? Is it item 3?
Item 3, yes.
We are on item 3, yes.
Okay, item 3, and do we have a staff report?
We do. I'm going to pull up, not necessarily a PowerPoint, just a visual.
Just a visual, no PowerPoint.
No PowerPoint. All right. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Lucas Seibert. I'm the Community Development Director here for the City of Ojai. The item before you tonight is a proposed amendment to an existing conditional use permit. The CUP at reference here is 24-001, and it is in reference to 202 West Ojai Avenue, which is the AT&T building off of Ojai Avenue on the north side. You can see on the visual, and it's really the one that's dashed in red, rectangular piece. The second one is 111 West Matilaha Avenue, which is the parking lot that is in blue, northwest or northeast side. The original conditional use permit for the site provided approval for off-site improvements dating back to the 1970s. The building itself, which is the AT&T building, was built circa 1923. Several renovations and improvements were made to the property, but really kind of the more major revisions were made in the 70s. And that's what we're looking at here today, which included both the 202 West Ojai Avenue as well as 111 West Matilaha Street. That included both the approval as well as conditions that went along with that. One of the conditions specifically to it, which is really the crux of discussion tonight, is the requirement for 6 employee spaces at 111 West Matilaha Avenue. The remaining parking spaces, which are right around 9 or 10, it's not striped, so the definitive number of parking spaces is a little bit foggy, but it's somewhere in between 9 and 10 spaces, have remained open and available for public use. There was a number of, there was an attachment that included a number of documents kind of giving the history of this site, which is fairly rich, dating back to the 70s up to today. So the applicant representing AT&T is here tonight, and will get up and speak after the presentation, is requesting that all parking for the site be waived. The reasons and rationale behind this request is due to the switching station, which is really the AT&T building that we see here. It's that 2-story building, is no longer having regular employees on site. Instead, and that's really kind of due to the technological advancements that we've seen over the years, this facility is operating remotely with maintenance workers on site infrequently. What they're requesting is going from kind of the 5 as a minimum to 0. Pursuant to Title 10, Chapter 2, Article 14, which is the parking standards of the Ojai Municipal Code, the director is provided with the authority to determine the number of parking spaces required on site. There isn't necessarily a definitive, hey, this is your parking requirement for this type of use. Information had been previously provided with a survey over a 6-month period that identified justification for a reduction to the number of parking spaces from the minimum of 5 to a minimum of what they had identified at the time, which was 1.26 spaces, or as we look at it, or I look at it as the director, 2 spaces. We round up in this case. You can't round down to remove a space when there's already a need for that. So, in the staff report, and really kind of what is up for discussion tonight as a part of the public hearing, is I'm really kind of proposing 2 potential solutions to resolve this. The first is that the property owner may provide parking elsewhere to meet their demand of the 2 parking spaces, or the city may agree to extend the in lieu parking fee to mitigate the AT&T parking demand from the 2 spaces to 0. Each year we reevaluate the in lieu parking fee, which adjusts up based on various CPI and construction regulations through a magazine that we regularly subscribe to. That number at this point, and that's pursuant to the code, which is kind of odd but necessary, and that's the way in which we evaluate it each year. Each space right now is $8,267 $14,949 per space. That would then equate to 2 spaces, which would be $16,534.98.
When you say space, Lucas, are you referring to one normal, regular parking space?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes. Additionally, and it was noted in the staff report, but I wanted to make it known here, there remains an active code case at 111 West Matilaha, which is still and remains unresolved.
And what's the code case?
So it's an open code case. I can't necessarily go into the details of what the specific code case is. What I can say is we're actively looking for resolution, but that has not been resolved at this point.
I would like to know what it is if we're going to vote on this.
So here's how the code, like when there's an active code case, there's 2 things. One is we're looking at resolution, and there's a number of different ways in which we strategize those resolutions. This code case has actually been ongoing since 2019. As far as I've been here, we've been looking for resolutions to that. That code case has popped up and then been identified as resolved, and then popped up and then identified as resolved. It has popped up and has yet to be resolved at this point.
Have there been numerous code cases, or is it just this one that's recurring?
There have been a couple of. Not the same one, there's been a couple.
Okay. So the history is fraught with issues on this.
And I've been here since 2019, and I've been aware of the code case since 2019.
Okay, and before we get into discussion too, I want to make sure the applicant has a chance to speak and we open it up to public comment.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other
I have a
questions for
question. Is
staff?
this the building, the 202 that we granted an approval to put some antennas on the back of the roof?
Telecommunication wireless facility? Yes.
Yes, right, okay. So we've addressed this facility before. We've looked at it. We've understood what happens there.
It's a 2-story building, yes.
Two-story building, right.
But at that time, the parking lot did not come into
The
the
parking lot is out of the
conversation.
discussion. And what happens when they want to sell 202? The use requires parking, and there ain't no parking around. The new buyer can't demolish what's been done on West Matilaha to create parking for it.
Wait, you're asking what happens if there's no parking for a building?
Yeah.
The in lieu fee would provide
so
one of the
in lieu-
solutions.
so in
Or
lieu.
the other solution is this applicant finding another appropriate location for the 2 spaces. Meaning, likely they would have to buy another lot to identify, or lease spaces, or some sort of combination of the 2. There's a number of different ways in which they could solve that, but it's also something that's been identified as a part of the conditions
But
that
it's-
we would
but-
evaluate.
It is the use that the lot would be put to. Right now, the use requires 2 parking spaces or 1.6 parking spaces.
I would say the demand for the parking, because there isn't necessarily for every so many square feet, this is the parking, it's 1 space for every 1,000 square feet, or 1 space for every 250 square feet. That's not the case for this provision. Instead, it's an evaluation of the use
The use.
and its impact, yeah.
So
And
so
the
if
demand, I
if the
guess you could say.
building ever got sold and AT&T just decided they were gonna do all their switching in Ventura and didn't require having a local switching site, the new buyer would have to start from scratch, present their uses, and a determination would be made how many spots would be needed for those uses.
Yeah, the only difference is the in lieu parking spaces would be something that would be banked for this particular property. So 202 West Ojai would now have banked 2 parking spaces in lieu.
Right.
If they're going beyond that, then they've got to figure out where they're going to find the parking.
And those two spaces and the amounts that you quoted for those are one-time payments or annual payments?
One time,
One-time payments.
Oh, I thought that was
not annual, one time.
That's what I thought.
It's crazy. It's not a lot of money.
And what is the use of 111 not 111 West
that was
Patilla, the building across the street that you were talking about
To the north and to the east,
to the,
the one that's in blue,
no,
the green.
no, I guess is 111 the one that is
In blue.
In blue.
It is,
It
yes.
is in blue.
And that's the parking lot.
Yeah, no, I know that. But what were you saying before, that there is a dispute which gets resolved and then isn't resolved?
That's on 111.
Ongoing code compliance
With code
cases
Right,
with this site.
where?
With 111 West Matilla.
So it's on this piece of property?
Correct.
There's a code compliance issue. And so we do know what's going on there. It's an unused or somewhat used parking lot.
So it's dedicated to have 6 parking spaces, a minimum of 5, but they've been dedicating 6 parking spaces for this 111 West Matilla. The remaining spaces, somewhere in between 9 and 10 spaces, it's not striped, so it's not definitive, have been used for a public purpose. And that's been going on since 1973.
And Jamie, I want to call out, it is not well paved.
Yeah, no,
It needs to be redone.
right.
Nobody parks there. Again, as Lucas said, the lines are not clear and defined. So right now, even though it's a public parking space, it's not being used, nor is it like friendly in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm trying to get to is, what is the use of the property which requires it to have 5 or 6 parking places?
I think that use was decided in the 20s, wasn't it? 1929, when it
in the
originally came.
Oh,
up?
those are the parking spaces that
For
were
the-
agreed to
Yes.
for
In the 70s.
202.
For the actual-
For
It
Ojai
was a part
Avenue.
of,
Got
it was a part of the
Right.
1970
I'm
deal,
sorry,
yes.
a little dense. Got it.
No
That
worries.
parking lot wasn't a part of the AT&T or Pac Bell at that time in 1923. It was just Pac Bell at that point.
Okay, so any other questions for staff before we open it up to the public?
I would say let the applicant.
Yeah, wherever, yeah. Applicant first and then public. Okay, so,
No,
oh, sorry, one more question.
yes. If a new tenant moves into this building at 202 West Ojai Ave, they will comply with whatever we decide here tonight.
No.
No, wait, we gotta make
A
sure
new
we're clear.
Tenant,
Mhm.
AT&T subleases this space to someone else to come in and do something. That use case for that piece of property may change. Maybe it gets renovated.
Oh, okay, you're going, oh, got it.
So you're talking a change in use.
Change in use by a new tenant or let's say it's not AT&T. If we decide that there's no parking spaces under the CUP for this building, the new tenant for the new use will not have to provide any parking for that space. Is that correct?
No, it's not correct.
Great.
So the way in which, can I just give the 30 seconds on how
Please,
that would
I
work?
also want to know if AT&T were to sell, if the CUP would also default back and we'd have to.
Let me answer the use piece first. So if you're proposing a change in use for a site like this, it reevaluates the use as a new use. So they would have, assuming that there's an agreement by this body for the 2, they pay the 2, that becomes a bank for this specific site.
Right.
Any use that's more impactful from a parking standpoint would be evaluated. There's 2 ways in which that can be addressed. The first way is for that new use to identify parking within a 500-foot radius and then justify that.
Mhm.
That's the first way. And it could be a combination of that way as well as paying in lieu to provide
Yeah,
for the
right.
funding.
So let's say, for example, restaurant purchases, let's say AT&T says, we're out of here, restaurant comes in, buys it. We have, in our code, they are required to have parking. So because there wouldn't be any parking, because there's none right in there in that area, because it's already being used, they would have to pay in lieu fees.
Or provide parking somewhere else in
Or
town.
provide parking somewhere else in town.
And typically it's within a 500-foot radius. Anything beyond that becomes a bigger.
Or if Brian allows them, they can tear half the building down and make a parking lot out of it.
But the way the CUP reads today, the way, without the changes, if they did sell the property, the parking would go with the property. It would go with the CUP.
They would
The
bank
2.
those 2 in
They
lieu
would,
fees,
yeah.
yes.
Got it. Okay. Good question.
Second question, can you just repeat?
I mean, we basically answered it.
Does that
so
cover it? Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, Michael?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Michael Morgan. I'm with Blue Croy Limited, applicant's representative on this project. I want to thank the city for their patience and indulgence over the past 7 years since this application was originally submitted. We're happy to be before you this evening and actually bring this to fruition. So thank you for your time. I would like to address some of the questions and comments that took place. Commissioner Bennett and Commissioner Graham, with respect to parking and the solution should things change. It's already built into the resolution. Condition number 2 requires that if there's an intensification of the existing use, in other words, if more employees were assigned to the building or if there were more regularly scheduled trips at the building, then more parking would have to be provided to accommodate that change. Condition number 8, I believe, yes, condition number 8 nullifies this conditional use permit should the use cease to operate for a 6-month period. So that kind of indirectly addresses 2 things. Not only the cease of this use, but of a change of use.
Yep.
Right, because if the use changes, then this use ceases. And that would nullify this conditional use permit, which would trigger the action that Lucas described in considering whatever new use may come along and have appropriate parking and whatever other conditions that would apply to such a use. So that being said, I believe the way that the resolution is already drafted addresses your concerns about parking. Regarding the code compliance issue and the ongoing opening and closing of code compliance, condition number 6 addresses that, and it mandates working with the city to find resolution, which we fully intend to do and look forward to. Because ultimately, AT&T's goal is to satisfy these conditions, satisfy the code compliance issue, and have the ability to sell the parking lot, severing it from, oh, the graphic's gone, the 202 building. So that's our ultimate goal, which is aligned with the city's goal, I believe. And that being said, we have reviewed the staff report, obviously, and the conditions of approval, and we're in concurrence with all of them. We would like to exercise the option of 1B, which is paying the in-lieu fees for the 2 parking stalls, and that is our position. I'm more than happy to answer any additional questions you may have, or any questions from the public as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I have a couple questions for you.
Please.
First, I have no issues with AT&T, getting rid of the parking spaces, given the use case there. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I am curious. I've asked city staff, but I'm going to ask you, as representing AT&T, what are the code complaints that have been?
I am unfamiliar with the detail of the code complaints. I unfortunately cannot address them. I could speculate, but I'm not sure how productive that would be.
Sure.
But I don't have copies of them. I just know that they exist. I know that, as Lucas mentioned, they've been satisfied and then they come back. So we will work on figuring out whatever they are and finding a resolution for it.
Yeah, great. I'm curious if you have a buyer lined up for the parking lot currently.
I'm not aware. I'm not aware if there's a buyer lined up.
Would AT&T be willing to sell the parking lot to the city or donate it to the city for public parking usage?
This specific property, I'm not sure what the marketing or what kind of considerations have been made to its disposition, but historically, I know that AT&T is open to all bidders. So if the city were to be interested in purchasing the lot, I wouldn't see any objection to that.
Sure. And what about donating a lot to the city of Ojai
I
for
couldn't
public
speak
parking?
to that. I would just defer to the negotiations with AT&T's brokerage team. We're not brokers. We're not real estate agents. We're just here land use consultants on behalf of AT&T for the CUP.
Thank you.
And Mr. Morgan, quick question on the parking that is, well, the trucks, or the staff that does visit the location, which I believe it was mentioned, like there's 1.2 cars that come in, something like that, which calls out the need for the 2 parking spots. Where was your plans to park those folks?
So just to clarify that data, that, as you may have picked up on, this application was originally submitted, I want to say there was a pre-application in 2016 and then a formal application submitted in 2019. The 1.26 average that you are hearing is taken from data from 2018, over a 6-month period in 2018.
Okay.
And what that data is are evaluating unique key card swipe at controlled access doors. Because just to give you a little bit of background of this building, it's full of telecommunications infrastructure, switching gear, servers, backup power systems, et cetera, that provide all of the telecommunications services within about a 2.5 to 3 mile radius, give or take. So it is highly secure, there is controlled access. And each one of those card swipes is registered. So the 1.26 could be the same person showing up one day, leaving for lunch, coming back later. And again, it's dated data. So it's not necessarily 2 cars. And what they typically do is they just pull up onto the street right in front of the front door.
Could you tell me what kind of vehicle the maintenance staff brings or arrives in?
There's a combination of vehicles. The standard staff vehicle is either a sedan or a pickup truck. Occasionally, there might be a larger bucket truck or some of the larger utility vehicles that you've seen. It really depends on what the required maintenance or installation, whatever service is required for that specific assignment on that specific day, will most likely dictate the type of vehicle that arrives.
Okay, so in other words, the mitigation of 2 parking places assumes a normal vehicle as opposed to a possible, what did you call it? Bucket truck,
Right.
which would require significant parking.
Right, and those are typically for right-of-way projects, like working on a pole, working on some of the fiber lines that you may see overhead. So when there is an assignment for that type of work, and it's to be done in the right-of-way, there's typically right-of-way encroachment permits and other sort of measures that are taken for that specific type of operation. But when we're talking specifically about the building and about technicians visiting the building for building business, being maintenance, a fix, an installation of new equipment, it's typically servers and other things, other items and other equipment that's accommodated by pickups or vans or sedans. And unfortunately, I can't offer any routine or regular sort of expectation because there isn't any. It's all case by case. If something goes down, it needs to get fixed. And there aren't people reporting there on a daily basis. So they arrive based on whatever work order is dictated.
Can I just ask about the technology that's in the building?
Yes.
If you were to go back 80 years, the technology would have had a lot of switches, a lot of noise, things. As you dialed a phone, you'd have a device in that building which would be taking those pulses and sending them someplace else. Now things are, changed dramatically, and all the switching is done through solid state. It's all getting smaller and smaller, and even cables, meaning wires to homes, are becoming a thing of the past, as we're now providing, or will be providing, fiber to the home. Do you ever see a time when this is really not an efficient use of this space in the city, that you're going to want to sell it because it's in a commercial zone? You could put all sorts of things in there, and you've got essentially a vault there with no customers coming or going, and no real employees coming or going. And so to have such a beautiful piece of real estate in the middle of downtown and have it be like a frozen block where it's impenetrable may seem odd 10 years, 20 years from now, when AT&T has laid fiber to the home and they can locate all that switching stuff anywhere they want and in a much smaller place. Are we, and this is really a question to Lucas, I guess, are we hurting ourselves by potentially getting rid of a piece of property that may be useful in the future to the community, because the highest and best use is not essentially a cinder block building where no one comes and goes and does anything. It's a sort of wasted space in the city. It's not part of the city vibrancy. It could be anywhere. It could be, on Bryant Street. Not to say that Bryant Street is, it has actually important uses as a manufacturing space in town. But I'm just wondering about the future, and things are moving so quickly. I mean, this is going to be a useless place at some point.
I suppose that could be a.
Could I phrase it in a question?
Yeah.
How much of that building is used?
All of it.
Okay.
What,
All of it's being
what's
used
being
currently.
used in the building that's on the
I would like
parking
to
lot?
address it. I'll provide a brief history. We only have to go back 40 years. That's about when it's about the time that the mechanical switch over to digital
Right.
took place. So what you were describing earlier with the mechanical switches, you even had human beings in there, as I'm sure you've seen on some of the older TV shows, taking a wire out and plugging it in, literally connecting a phone call.
Yeah.
All of that has been replaced as technology's evolved.
Right.
And technology does get smaller. But you still have all of the copper lines that run through the city and run to a lot of all of these older properties where fiber may not reach, or a customer may not want fiber. And that copper is still going into that building. All the fiber, if it eventually replaces, still goes into that building. And in that building, there is a slew of servers and other sorts of sophisticated digital equipment that manages all of those phone calls that you used to make, as well as all of the video, all of the Zoom meetings. All of that interconnectivity has a hardwire backbone, and it goes into these servers. And yes, while the actual equipment that provides the service gets smaller, the equipment that supports that server gets bigger, because it runs hotter, it needs more ventilation, it needs more air, and there's kind of a trade-off. So the footprint that is reduced by the digital equipment is recouped by the equipment that supports it. So although on the outside of the building, you do see this lovely building that no one can go into and no one can visit, and people often wonder what's in there, and there's no windows, the inside of it tends to evolve and constantly change, but it is used. It's not used for human beings anymore, and that's the point of this request.
Could you tell me what use you're making of the building that's on the parking lot?
So
South end?
That was an old storage building that was on the parking lot. It was used for tools and whatnot. And there is actually a piece of fiber equipment inside of it that is connected to the building and at 202. So that equipment will be protected by an easement, and it will be a private party arrangement between AT&T and whoever buys it to protect it, because it's a piece of infrastructure that is critical to the services that are rendered out of the building and critical to the neighborhood that it's.
So that building would
provides.
stay?
The building may not stay because the piece of equipment is relatively small. So as long as the equipment is protected, I can certainly see that building changing. But again, that would be up
That
to.
equipment is going to stay on that site, we could say that?
Correct, yes.
Just want to point out, you said the equipment in the big building can't get smaller, can't move, but the equipment in the small building could definitely be housed in another building.
I didn't say that.
No, he said on site.
I said that it doesn't take up that entire building, and it's kind of an ancillary piece of equipment. It's very similar to when you're driving down the street and you see a cabinet, the utility cabinet, either electrical or telecom. It's that kind of equipment. So it would remain, but it could potentially not require that shack to remain that's around it. And that's just something that would be up to
Appreciate it.
the
I'm
buyer and whomever.
I'm curious with the parking lot. It's public parking right now? How long has that been?
It is not public parking. It's open, it's not gated, it's not secured, so I would imagine that just by nature of day-to-day business, people may park in it.
People
it is-
refer to it as public parking.
It is not, and it's not listed anywhere as public parking. It was mentioned in a staff report, I believe in the 70s, that it could be used as public parking, but it's never been officially designated as such. The 5 stall requirement is the only codified requirement for that parking lot. So there obviously are surplus beyond the 5, but that surplus is undefined. It's not for the building, it's not for public. It is on private property, but it's never been specifically designated as available for public use.
Lucas, that's true. Thank you.
So here's the thing. He's also referencing the information that's been provided in the staff report, and he's done his due diligence as well.
Sure.
There was discrepancies that went back, and I think it was really kind of through the director at the time in the 70s, and potentially the city manager at that time, just public officials that were working through the way, and I think the intentions of what was meant when this item went forward in the 70s. I think the understanding is there was going to be a minimum of 5 spaces dedicated there. They then identified that there was a need for 6, so 6 ended up being the number, and then the rest of them were just open, not necessarily dedicated to anything specific. Over time, that was just assumed that was meant for public. There was signage at one point that was identified that then was removed. That was through code cases that date back to the 70s as well.
Thanks, yeah.
They were required to make like the wall around that area as well.
Yeah, there is that wall along the
Separate.
south side, yes. I think it's like a 5 or 6 foot.
So they can't say
Stucco
that
wall.
it's not public parking according to this, but we're also saying it's not.
There's not a condition that specified that the remaining was to be for public parking, but it does identify it's to remain open and not dedicated. So
Okay.
it's
Got
it's unclear from the 70s and never really was fleshed out.
If you can't tell, we care about parking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Parking's
I
a big
think,
deal.
I think that's why we are, our goals and our intentions are absolutely aligned. By approving this conditional use permit modification, it alleviates this parking lot, this property, to be utilized for something else, something useful. I wanted to say more useful, but right now it's not useful at all. So it would be useful with the approval of this conditional use permit modification so that AT&T can divest of it and allow it to recycle in a manner that is consistent with your goals and the desires of the city.
And are you familiar with the El Roblar Hotel?
No, but I heard you mention it before.
Yeah. They're interested in buying the property or renting it from AT&T to be able to provide extra parking for their staff and visitors. But
Well, approval of this CUP would make that available.
yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
Would
Oh,
the,
sorry.
well, this is really for Lucas.
All right.
Would the
Wait, hang on,
property
hang on.
remain?
Is there any more questions for Mr. Morgan so he can relax a little bit?
Maybe.
I'm more than happy to stand and
Oh,
answer.
we just had 25 hours worth of standing. I think he can manage another few minutes.
Well, if you got another question for him, absolutely, yeah.
Would this property remain public or quasi-public zoning?
Yeah, this does not impact the zoning or the general plan designation, which is public, quasi-public.
So if the property is sold, the buyer is going to come back to us with a proposal of some sort that may or may not require a zoning change, and that may or may not bring up the whole parking thing again.
It all depends on who the buyer is, yes. Could.
Do we know the market price of this property?
I do not.
Do you know if AT&T has an item in their budget for charitable donations?
I do not.
Well, sit down.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm
Morgan.
here to address the land use, and that's what we're
Oh,
hired
You're
for.
totally fine.
That's what we're interested in.
I know, and it's a step in the process, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
get through this process, and then we get to that step.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question of staff?
Yeah, go ahead.
I know because we've received some communication from a nonprofit which would love to have AT&T give this property to them. You may not be aware of that? No. Well, I'm aware that there is a nonprofit in town that is sort of lusting after this piece of property and think
Like a
that
lot
the
of people are.
appropriate thing would be that AT&T would give it to them. But
Okay.
I
So
disagree.
I'm gonna-
Disagree.
Hold on,
No,
hold-
you,
hold
we're
on.
getting away from land use
Hold on.
here, and so like,
Let me finish, please.
Yeah, this is a
Let me
question
finish.
for
I just
staff.
want to know, is that a question that this body should consider or not? The
whether AT&T should sell the donate the.
give it, sell it?
No.
No,
That's
okay,
outside the scope.
That's all I wanted.
Yeah, so we'll
that's
put
all I
parking
wanted, 'cause I want
spaces.
to make it so the people who are waiting to talk about
I hear
this
you.
issue
Okay.
are not going to have to sit here to only find out at the end of this conversation that there's nothing to talk about because we can't talk about it.
That is outside the jurisdiction of this body.
Right.
Any negotiation about the lot would have to be something that went to council. It would have to be authorized by council. This is not the space for that. This is outside your jurisdiction. And a private, nonprofit donation also outside the scope
Right.
of this body.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay,
that's all.
so
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
can I open it up for public comment now? Yeah, okay, cool. All right, I've got a speaker card for Mr. Miley. You should talk now. No, you can, you're good. You, yeah.
If I can make it. I tried that parking lot once and almost broke my axle, steering wheel. Not this axle, this one's broken already. Hello, to set a flavor for my idea, on the internet page for the AT&T Foundation, even though Taylor says, it says, quote, AT&T is committed to advancing education, strengthening communities, and improving lives. Through its philanthropic initiatives and partnerships, AT&T and the AT&T Foundation support projects that create opportunities, make connections, address community needs where we, our customers, live and work. I believe you should consider a resolution. You're not adopting a position, you're just asking the city council to consider it, which you do a lot of. Okay. I'm aware that they want to have the parking removed, and I know all about that. The switching building started in 1929, 3 years before I was born. Our telephone company, now A&T, has supported the Ojai Valley well for a long time. This has created historical chronology, something the Ojai Valley Museum, that's their lives. And they represent the whole issue of Edward Drummond Libby City is what it is because of their switching stations and all their plugins. I want to suggest AT&T Corporation seriously consider having their communication history in this valley recognized through the donation of this parking lot parcel to the city for its use by the museum and other downtown patrons. I have shared my thoughts and specific suggestions with Wendy Barker, museum director, and I did this a couple of years ago too. If AT&T chooses to donate, I suggest the museum can designate a part of their museum interior in recognition and honor of the contribution. I know the city manager, I found this out Saturday, has spoken to Ms. Barker about an idea for the city to buy the lot. Certainly a worthy idea. However, mine creates historical value and recognition which will go well beyond the payment of money. Mine creates historical value and recognition. I just said that. And it will last into the far future rather than just the payment of the money. So I suggest your commission adopt a resolution, not a position, just 10 seconds, please.
4 seconds.
Requiring the city council to vote or to ask AT&T to donate the property, indicating if they do, they'll make a permanent display in the museum. on the communication services in the past 90 years. They've made it possible for this valley to talk, 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 listen, 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 and now digitally, massively, digitally, 24 hours a day. Please, adopt such a resolution. Money is ordinary. Donation is joyous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miley. All right, I got Wendy Barker.
I'm Wendy Barker. I'm the director of the Ojai Valley Museum, and my office is right across from the AT&T building with the big window. So I have a view of that building and who goes in and out of it for almost 10 years on the 40-plus hours a week. So some of the questions that you were asking about the parking lot that he couldn't answer, I could probably answer. Code enforcement stuff, it's the paving, and there was some paving done, a little fill-in last week, so it's a little bit better than it was, but there are still massive problems with that parking lot. And I think the other main issue has been with landscaping. In terms of what trucks park and come in and out, I don't rarely seen a sedan. It's the big trucks. Mm-hmm. And they don't usually park in that parking lot unless they're going into that little building. And I have asked multiple people who are using that little shack what they're doing in there, and they invariably say, we're just storing stuff and I came to pick something up or I came to drop it off. If they're going into the main building, they are usually parking right outside my window or across the street. There are days like today I didn't see any. On a rare day, there might be 3 trucks all at once, but they're all on the street. They're not in the parking lot. In terms of who uses the parking lot, if we have a big event, our sometimes staff, like I will park there if it's a night event, because it's not safe at night. There's no lights, huge potholes, it's very unsafe. But I'll free up other spots that I feel are safer for people. I personally walk a lot, so I walk by that parking lot several times a day at least. The real estate office, some of them sometimes use it. I mean, there's many times when I go by and nobody's in that parking lot. And sometimes it's one person. So we are in a city-owned building. We do use that parking lot. We would love it to be better maintained, and we would love the city to buy it, and so that we could use it. I think that's it, unless you have any questions that I might be able to answer. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, Brian, you are up.
Hello, my name is Brian Akins. I have a different hat on tonight. Tonight I am representing the Ojai Valley Museum. I've been on that board for 16 years or so. I've been the treasurer for most of that and the president for several of those years. Let me see. So the reason I mentioned the number of years is that I'm pretty sure in each of those 16 years we have talked about the lot behind the building. In fact, we were recently a little bit put out by, there's a home that's directly to the east side of that lot that was sold before we could even see it. It was sold by the time the sign went up there. And we're like, missed opportunity. So you can see why we're here tonight. We are very much enjoying your questions, very much enjoying your suggestions, very much enjoying having Mr. Morgan here from AT&T to address answers and guidance from him. But again, I don't usually pass up on the opportunity to go early and get it over with, but when you have Bill Miley and our own executive director who's been with us, in July will be her 10th anniversary and done a fine job. And she sits there day after day. When Mr. Morgan said sedan, we both looked at each other and said, have you ever seen a sedan there? And then we laughed. I'm not there as much as Wendy, so I'll give her credit for spotting a rare opportunity of seeing that sedan. Again, so we appreciate your involvement. We would love to have, we've always talked about finding someone who maybe would donate the amount of money to purchase that property. The AT&T have been communicated with informally a couple times on donations. I think having Mr. Morgan here, that may give an opportunity for further discussions along that way. So again, thank you. I already told Mr. Seibert that I appreciated the historical information that was on that building. Great information. I hope you read it and enjoyed it. So again, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, open it up for discussion. Anybody would like to go first? I have a couple items, so we can talk about. Anybody have anything you want to discuss? No?
Oh, yeah, everyone's looking at me. I love it.
Well, they all shake their heads no. I gotta go this way.
Yeah, I personally would prefer that the CUP require there to be parking elsewhere, just because of, it's tough as we redevelop Ojai to make sure that there's enough parking for people. But given the use case of this building and the fact that if the use case changes, we'll have to revisit the parking situation, I'm fine with not requiring them to have to designate parking for the existing use case. The $16,000, a hilarious small fee for AT&T. I get why they just want to pay it. As we separate these two properties and potentially give AT&T the opportunity to sell this property, I'm curious, public, quasi-public land, do we have the ability as the Planning Commission to be able to designate that it remain parking or put any sort of conditions precedent on the sale of the property to repave it, reline it, bring it in conformity with a usable public parking space or parking lot?
I think compliance with current standards would fit the mold of what you're talking about. I can't necessarily go into, like I said before, I can't go into the details of what the co-compliance case is.
Sure.
But compliance with current standards, I think, would probably solve a piece of what you're talking about.
And the other
Ahead
piece
of any completion, you mean?
Correct.
Okay.
To be sold, yeah. And so the other piece I'm getting at is, can we actually put a condition precedent on how the piece of land would be used by the buyers? Because that I don't think we can
By
do.
zoning.
Well, outside of zoning?
Hold on, I think that's a Taylor question in terms of the legalities of it.
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so, and then, the way that you typically do that is by zoning.
Yeah.
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 Uses and zoning.
So I want to frame the discussion a little narrower. Whatever we decide tonight, if they sell, this land does not need to be used for parking or public parking.
Right.
It could be,
Correct.
developed into potentially anything else.
What's developable under the public, semi-public?
35 permanent homeless housing units. So
that
anything
permanent
can be
supportive
developed
housing?
on public, quasi-public.
I will just identify this lot is about 11,000 square feet in size, so it's
Small.
less. Yeah, it's a fairly small lot.
I personally would love to see this piece of land continue to be parking. This is a key corridor for the city of Ojai. We are redeveloping this stretch of Ojai. Like literally, we talk about it, every couple months. There's a new proposal for something to do here. In the next 10 years, 20 years, this is all going to be redeveloped by a whole new generation. There's going to be restaurants, there's going to be shops, there's going to be more hotels. We need to make sure that we're providing adequate housing or parking for, our residents and our visitors, just to reduce that congestion problem. So I hope that we keep that in mind as we're thinking about, allowing AT&T to be able to separate this piece of property and sell it.
I agree with you. I'm just not sure how we do that.
Well, so if it's helpful too on the question about future use of the property, I'm looking in the code right now. So the public quasi-public district says maximum building intensity varies and shall be determined through the development review process on a case-by-case basis. So most of these will likely come either to Lucas or before this body to determine what's going to happen with the property.
Sure.
Not guaranteed if it obviously continues to be parking.
I haven't, well, since I joined, I have not seen this body say no to any proposal that comes before us.
I would like to,
Just saying, you come with a different proposal.
Well, if you
This
ca-
body is like very
If you
lenient.
came more often, you might see it.
I was gone once.
That was uncalled for.
All in good fun.
one thing I'd like to talk about is the code compliance issues. I know we can't really get into the code compliance issues, but I don't feel like we're in a position to really make a decision on this CUP without resolving those code compliance issues.
That's part of that's one of the conditions.
Condition precedent that we may be able to
Yeah,
put
but I
on it.
think that needs to be done before we make a decision. I don't,
The code compliance is cleared
yeah,
first.
yes, I'd like to see the code compliance
and then
cleared.
come back.
Yeah, and then come back.
That's,
Or I would like to see a plan put together and a timeline on when that code compliance is gonna be resolved, and then it can come back to us.
So right now, there's a condition number 6 that speaks to a 60-day time period
Yeah.
for which to address such code compliance.
It says address, maybe to John's point, to be corrected, completed to the city's satisfaction.
Yeah,
Right,
because,
okay, yeah.
and again, I don't know what the compliance issues are, but I do know part of the initial requirements for this lot was the minimum 6 parking stalls shall be maintained for utilization by telephone company. So I think the key word is maintain. I don't know if this property has been maintained as they said it was going to be maintained. I don't know if that's the compliance issue or not, but again, I think that I'd like this group to discuss the possibility of maybe postponing the decision on this, amending this CUP until we get this code compliance figured out.
Does that mean you'd like to see like a plan
Yeah.
set forth, like the
Yeah, I wanna
proposals,
see,
what they're gonna do?
Yeah, are you gonna pave it first?
Uh-huh.
Or, you know, are you gonna, what are you gonna do first?
Or,
before-
or would it be sufficient for this body if, once the code compliance issue was resolved, that the application could come back for consideration?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Instead of a plan, because we wouldn't want to put more bureaucracy
Sure,
than
yeah.
necessary on
Sure.
something like this.
Well, and plus to get to the plan, the way in which compliance is met is typically done through the co-compliance process, and there's a number of different ways that we strategize to gain that compliance.
Yeah, and I think
So
that gives
a
us.
plan, I wouldn't want to show the plan like I've talked about with other co-compliance cases like short-term rentals, for the simple fact that if we're showing the plan, potentially people are looking at that
Got it.
and then saying, oh,
Here's
let's
a
see
way
if
to-
there's a way in which I can circumvent that.
Gotcha, I gotcha.
So it's important that that kind of stay on the DL and not necessarily something that comes out to the public, just so that we can continue to find solutions that are agreeable. And if they're not agreeable, then we start looking at other strategies that are a little more aggressive.
Right, I gotcha.
Please.
In the microphone.
Oh, I didn't want to, if I wasn't invited to, I
Yeah,
didn't
you're
wanna
good,
speak.
you're good.
The way the condition is written, that code compliance, and we can play, I'm sure you can play with the language, and having that 60-day term associated with it, correct me if I'm wrong, Lucas, if that condition is not satisfied, this decision is nullified. So as part of you allowing the reduction in parking, we are committing to satisfying the code compliance issue, and should we not, then your decision is rendered null. Is that a fair?
It is. It would have to come back to this body to officially remove the resolution and the conditions that exist here. So it'd have to return back to you here with a status update.
If they failed to meet.
Condition,
plans.
yeah, something like condition 6 would fail to be met. Thus, this resolution, staff's recommended this resolution be removed.
Okay.
Could I ask a question about the resolution? Attachment A, page 106, the last whereas. In A, it's saying the proposed use is not more objectionable or detrimental to the general welfare. What proposed use? I mean,
it doesn't sound to me
It's
like.
it's regurgitating the information that's provided as a part of the findings. So what it's saying is it's consistent. There's consistency that's being, that's already on site. That's not more objectionable than what we're looking at here. For instance, the parking requirement being reduced is simply a matter of math and or employees not being there on site anymore, at least to the level that it was before in the 70s.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
The code compliance issues, does that relate to a very specific piece of the city code that needs to be, is that referring to parking? I'm asking valid questions.
I have to have a poker face here, only because if I'm divulging code compliance pieces before this body, then it becomes public information. And the reality is code compliance lives within a bubble to gain compliance. And I would be remiss if we started moving in a trend that really exposes our strategies to gain that compliance.
I think I'm trying to come up with a strategy. I'm just fishing for information
I'm
about
sorry.
how to get there.
I've got a
So-
poker face here in this instance.
Yeah, all good.
Just-
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I feel like we're kind of stabbing in the dark, so to speak, because we don't know what these code compliance issues are. And even if we did approve it and it doesn't meet it, then it'll come back here. I'm just saying, I'm just saying. So I feel like, I don't know, I would like to see us address these before we make any sort of decision on whether or not we move forward with this requirement,
So
with the
you're
request.
proposing a continuance
I'd
to
like
a
to,
date certain.
well, that's my thoughts, but again, it's up to you guys, we're in a discussion.
What benefit would we have?
Yeah,
I think
what
it gives us-
changes?
I think it gives us a little bit more clarity on what we're talking about. I think it gives us little bit more idea of what, if they are in compliance with the code, what direction we want to go with, or what direction we can go, versus just paying.
So,
in lieu and-
Will it?
Can I just
Like,
chime
are
in
you-
here for
that's what I
something?
think.
So when we've had previous projects that have come forward with code compliance issues that have been resolved, and we've talked about those pieces. I can think of a couple different properties. I'm not going to mention them. But what happened there is we were able to identify what those issues were because they had been resolved, right? And there's other ones that came up and they had been resolved.
Right,
In this situation, because the case is still open and pending,
right.
I cannot divulge any information on that at this
Oh,
point.
I totally get it, and that's why I'd like to see that resolved, then we can bring it out in the open, discuss it, and then we can make a decision with more.
So if you're asking what the
a
difference would be
well-informed decision
between
versus-
what you're talking about now versus what you would be talking about with a continuance, it would be the information as to the specifics of that violation
I
or violations.
personally am falling on the side with John. We can approve the resolution now, and in 60 days, there'll be some sort of compliance, but we'll never know what that was that we voted on versus waiting until there's compliance, hopefully within 60 days, and then us revisiting with full information. I don't like it. I do think that is the better path.
I don't see any urgency on anyone's part to act before the code compliance is resolved.
What do you mean?
AT&T has been there since 1929, right? Nothing's changing. I don't think that whether they put that on the market today or tomorrow versus 2
Well, we
months
can-
from
we
now
can make
makes
it-
much difference.
We can make a date certain on when they've got to come back to us with their code of compliance.
Right, you can do that.
Can I, and I know nothing about what the code issues are, the
I don't either.
compliance issues are, but let's just speculate here that maybe it's inadequately maintained.
Oh, for sure.
Right, and that's a code issue. I don't know if that's a code issue or not. Let's say it is. So
Speculation, purely speculation.
purely
No, it's in the
speculative. No idea.
report. It says several code compliance cases related to the condition of the site have been formally filed with the current case
Right.
open related to the
Right.
deteriorating condition of the subject parking lot.
Right,
There you go.
right. Okay, there it is. And so the question is, are we and AT&T going to be in a better position 60 days from now after they spend a lot of money paving the parking lot and removing trees and all the rest of that.
Well,
Wait a
I'll tell you,
minute,
I'll
let me
tell you
just-
what, if it's a paved parking lot, it's more likely to be a paved parking lot in the future.
This is where I'm going, trying to find a way, a condition precedent. But
in the end, it's still gonna be up to, I mean, you brought up the El Roblar. If the El Roblar buys it, that's not gonna be public parking.
I agree, and it's
So
like,
it's like, I mean, I don't know, it's a bit, you know,
I do think having parking though for overflow parking or for, guest parking for the El Roblar reduces congestion on the street, opens up more spaces for other guests or like visitors of Ojai. So I do, like, it's 10 spaces maybe, or 9 spaces. But I do think that that's better than not having any parking there. And I do think that we should make a recommendation to City Council that we buy this parking lot.
Agreed.
We can't make any guarantees that this will stay a parking.
100%.
that's right.
100%. Yeah.
So I feel like that if we meet the conditions of whatever this compliance piece might be, then we'll have transparency and we can make appropriate decisions on what to do with this CUP going forward. Because it does move with the property, and to Jamie's point, if AT&T does decide to sell it, because they don't necessarily need that facility going forward because technology changes, whoever buys that property, this is a decision on, are they gonna have parking or are they not gonna have parking? And I think that we need to have transparency in order to make that decision going forward. Not necessarily thinking of where AT&T is now, but think of where that property is gonna be 20 years from now. So that's kind of where I'm looking at this.
Can AT&T sell the parking lot right now? My thought is no, because it's
No.
attached to,
It's attached to the
and so we have to get rid of the CUP requirement.
Yep.
Right.
And then they can split the property at that point in time? They have to,
It's not split, it's more like sever
They could sever it.
the
and then they
use
could sell it.
requirements from
Yeah.
it, yes.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Just a couple of thoughts I'd like to share. It is a separate lot. It is tied by the CUP to the building. Technically, I could see an argument where it could be sold, but that use restriction remains.
Yeah,
Sure.
true.
because the parking spaces have to still be tied to AT&T,
For
those 5.
AT&T.
Yeah.
Not for
The
anyone else.
rest of everything else, yeah.
If the code compliance matter is satisfied, the code compliance condition disappears. So there wouldn't be any discussion about it, and it wouldn't show up on a future resolution. So I'm having a hard time following the logic of satisfying it, to expose it, to discuss it when it's resolved and no longer a party to the resolution. Whereas approving the resolution as it is currently drafted not only mandates the code compliance be resolved, but assigns a 60-day time period to it.
But it's an incentive that we're putting on AT&T to, fix whatever the compliance
condition.
issue is
Come back to
before
us.
you can then, be able to sell this property.
And that's exactly what the condition accomplishes. And the condition is put in force by adoption of the resolution. So if it's not complied with, and I know that this commission is going to keep track of that 60 days, then the benefit of the resolution and everything associated with it goes away. So the incentive is created by the adoption of the resolution.
I disagree because there's been several code complaints over this past 7 years, 6 years, whatever it is, that supposedly have been rectified, and then they come back and supposedly been rectified. And so, I
None
just
of which have been attached to a resolution, right? So this is an enforcement opportunity that does not usually exist.
I respectfully disagree.
Fair.
Yeah, this allows us to separate the two. So we have two things that we can, one that we take care of the issue, then make the decision, versus tying in this with the decision here, when we really don't know what the code compliance issues are to begin with. So I feel like in order to make an informed decision, we need to have that transparency.
But with the 60 days, the resolution, as I understand it, says they have to fix the code compliance issues, or the deal that's being cut here.
They have to
or
address.
approved
What
here.
if we
They have
Has
to
to be
address.
What if we add something that says at the 60 days, they have to come back? like, before us and present that it's
Yeah, it's
the code
basically what
compliance
we would do a
is-
continuance. We would do a continuance.
We
for
continue the
date
item,
certain.
they fix the problem,
They
they
fix the
come back
problem,
to
they
us.
come back, then
we
we make
start
the
over.
decision on the CUP.
I
Right, but-
personally,
Okay.
sorry, no, please, please. I've spoken so
Because this,
much.
because this CUP is gonna live with the property. It's gonna live with this,
So
with this.
are you
land.
concerned that if we do it a way where basically we're saying in 60 days, this is gonna be complete, we approve this and we not assume, but maybe we add a thing, you know, you get to come back and present to us that this is done, but it's still based on something that we might approve tonight. You're concerned that if we do that, that they might not do it to the satisfaction, and then what's our sort of recourse to
Yeah, I
make
don't know.
sure that it has been done to our satisfaction for this to move forward, basically?
Like, again, I don't know what the code compliance issues are.
Sure.
The language says to address code compliance or code complaint. I don't know what that means. So
Yeah.
this is basically allowing us to, okay, get that piece taken care of, and then let's move forward and make decision on the CUP. Because the CUP is gonna run with the property. It's a building that has parking associated with it. If we separate those two and just allow the building to function without the parking, that's a big deal going forward, not only for our city, but also for whoever buys that property in the future, for if AT&T ever decides to sell it at some point.
Limiting for those who are trying to buy it in the
Limiting,
future.
yes.
Yeah.
Can we put a condition precedent on the sale of the parking lot that there will be no code compliance issues before any sale is completed? That to me helps ensure that even if they resolve this within 60 days, it's not gonna pop up, you know, on day 61 or something, right?
Well, in that Lucas, please let me know, Taylor. But in that, the uses are not, for instance, commercial. They're PL. They're gonna have to come back, whoever buys it, is gonna have to come back and say, this is how I wanna use it. But I guess I don't see any benefit to the community of just not passing this the way it is. I mean, it's, okay, they're gonna have to, somebody's gonna have to fix it, whether it's them or the person who buys the property, the company or institution.
Why
that
should
buys
it be
the
some other person's responsibility?
Because they may want to do it in a different manner. Have AT&T pave it for some generic parking use, and then have the buyer comes in, and let's say the buyer is the museum, as proposed by several people tonight, and the buyer says, no, I don't want to do it that way. I want the curb cut over here, and I want to put the entrance over there, and I want to light it differently. It's just not the way we would have done it. And what we've done is we've forced the current owner, AT&T, to essentially, whatever the issue is it bad vegetation or demoing an old building or whatever the code compliance issue, we force them into doing something that may or may not be of interest to the buyer.
But isn't that just? Isn't that right?
How
Isn't
long-
that
this-
their responsibility?
This has been out of compliance since, like, I don't know how long, but it's been out of compliance for a long time.
Yeah, but what benefit does the community have if the lot gets paved twice? First by AT&T to get its to erase this problem, and then the buyer is going to do whatever they're going to do with it. I mean, you know, and I'm just speculating that
Yeah.
they're going to pave it, but why pay? Why, you know, it's like,
Yeah, because we don't know what they're gonna do with it. We don't know what AT&T is gonna do with it to generate, I don't know what the code compliance issues are.
well, AT&T's going to sell it.
They're
not
but
gonna do anything
I don't know what they're gonna do to address the code compliance issues.
Well, what could it be? It could be demoing the decrepit building, it could be
Yeah, we don't know.
vegetation, it could be a parking
We're
lot. It could-
speculating. We just
Right,
don't
I know, but none of those things, what benefit do we get out of it? Somebody goes and spends $2 million to buy that property, or $1 million to buy that property to make it whatever, whether it's a parking lot or something else. It's like, okay, AT&T did something, but it's of no value to the buyer.
Yeah, it's, we're
And
putting
it
the
slows everything
decision
down
on.
60 days. And 60 days is, time is money, you know.
Why are we assuming that it's not going to remain a parking lot and that's actually a value and a benefit to AT&T to be able to sell this piece of land for a premium?
Because AT&T's doesn't have any any consumer business there in that building. It has the 5 or 6 spaces in it. There's no public need, so it'd be very hard for somebody to prove, well, you know, we have it. We're requiring them to have 2 parking spaces, which they can extinguish with a payment of less than $25,000.
If I'm a hotel in downtown Ojai and I'm looking for extra parking and I want to buy this piece of property,
Right.
and it's ready to go day one from when I buy it, and I don't have to pay for the construction costs or deal with the planning department or go through the planning commission, there's a real value there for me as a buyer. And so I actually think that if the AT&T did that, they'd be able to make a little more money. And they'd be able to, you know, rectify the issues that have been ongoing year after year.
And how long do we let people go non-compliant?
Is this a compliance conversation?
It's a code compliance.
It's
We're
a
talking
compliance
about code
issue.
complaints. We're talking about code compliance. This has been ongoing for how many years? I don't know.
The planning commission, at least in the couple of years I've been on it, really doesn't deal with code compliance issues. Maybe it should, but for the most part,
All I know is
we're looking forward, we're not looking backwards.
I'm just saying it's tough for me to make a decision on something when I don't know what I'm really making a decision on. I don't know what these code compliance issues are, and I just don't feel comfortable making a decision around something where I'm kind of just shooting in the dark. Now, if there was no code compliance issues, everything was above board, I'd feel much more comfortable making a decision. But it's just difficult for me to do that. It's just me. I'm just.
But they've
again.
got 60 days to resolve that, you know?
But I'm making a decision based on this verbiage, addressed code compliance within 60 days. They're gonna address the code complaint within 60 days. They don't have to disclose what that is. It could be whatever they want. We don't
Well,
have
they
to see
can't
that
do
as a
whatever they
violation.
want. They have to say, all right, where are we in violation to the city? The city says, here's your violation. They have to fix the violation, or fix it to the conclusion of the staff to say, okay, well, that would bring it into conformity.
So here's what I'm saying. So let's say that they fix the code compliance issue. Again, don't know what that is. It comes back to us. Then they say, hey, we
Well,
still
why bring
want.
it back to us?
I'm saying if we get rid of, if this comes back to us, we separate these 2 decisions. So we take these as separate pieces. One is discussing whether or not we're doing this CUP. The other one addresses a code compliance issue. So the code compliance issue gets addressed. This comes back to us, and then we look at the CUP where everything's above board. We have no code complaints, we have no code issues. And then we can make a decision around, okay, does it benefit the city of Ojai to have these 2 properties separated, where one can now be sold in the PL zone based on whatever that usage is and based on the condition of that property? Because my assumption is that the condition of the property will most likely improve if those code compliance issues are met, which overall benefits the city of Ojai to have a compliant property versus non-compliant properties. Again, I'd like to have things above board, because this is just it's just not visible.
John, would it satisfy your concerns if we played around with the language here? So instead of address within 60 days, I agree that's not sufficient. Hey, they address it within 60 days with the community or with the planning department. The planning department and, you know, the applicant within 120 days have, you know, resolved
Yeah,
all
resolved.
100, you know, all code.
We've resolved all code compliance issues.
And before, you know, 111 can be sold, there shall be no code compliant or, code compliance issues.
Yeah, I think something like that would make more sense.
That way we find-
Why are you extending it from 60 days to 120?
I think I'm talking about, like, let's, in the spirit of what's in section 6, right? Attachment A, page 3, we talk about they will address within 60 days. Now, if we were to say, hey, they will resolve in like
I like
Oh,
resolve.
okay. I
figure
see.
it out, right, in
Address
60
to-
days.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not actually possible. Maybe it's going to take 90 days or 120 or 180 days. So what I'm suggesting is we keep section 6 as it is, have an additional clause that puts another time period for resolution of the code compliance issues, and another clause that talks about for the sale of the property, that there can be no existing code compliance issues at the time of sale.
Well, let's say a community garden's gonna go in there. You don't want to eliminate the code compliance issues that the paving isn't, has gotta be brought up to snuff, only to have a community garden go into the.
We'll have that applicant come back to the planning commission to determine whether a community garden meets the zoning requirements of the PL land.
And if the city wants to purchase it and put it in a community garden, that's great.
Or leave it as a parking lot.
Or leave it as a parking lot. Or,
I think we have common ground here that moves us off of our agenda.
See, I
It
don't
allows the
wanna-
applicant to move
I'm trying
forward.
to get things done and not ever see them again, as opposed to have this stuff come back, and we hang ornaments on these resolutions, that they gotta bring it back later for this thing and that thing.
So,
I don't
I'm-
see
I think
any,
we're not-
I don't
I'm
see
not-
any benefit to
That's
us.
I see this as a benefit. I see
Yeah,
this as a
yeah.
benefit to AT&T. I think this is great for AT&T. I'm struggling with how this benefits the city of Ojai. And I'm trying to make this more appealing for the city of Ojai. Because if this is a property that will eventually be purchased by whoever, if it's a city, if it's the museum or whatever, if it's a compliant property, that's gonna be beneficial versus a non-compliant, non-conforming property.
I think what, I think what Commissioner Graham's saying though is that we can resolve it tonight if we come up with.
Yeah, if we could put some
maybe
wording in there.
Clarify 6 or add 6A, B, C, or whatever that ensures to the satisfaction of Commissioner Trent and Commissioner Graham that this has been, maybe a better word, resolved, rather than just, addressed.
Mr. Morgan, did you have a question?
Oh, I
Yes,
called
I was
him up,
summoned.
yeah. Feel free to say no. Would AT&T have a problem, or I guess in this situation, say yes. Would AT&T have a problem with us putting in further condition precedents that not only will it be addressed with the city in 60 days, but it will be resolved within a certain number of days, and that at the time of sale, there will no be code compliance issues?
I believe the first two are not an issue, and I'll defer to the city attorney on the last one. I don't believe you can condition the sale of the property to be code compliant free. I mean, there's other mechanisms in place like title, purchase and sale negotiations, buyers refusing to buy something that has a code compliance item open on it. I do not believe that can be an actual condition of approval.
Then I will lawyer it and we'll say, as allowed by law.
Well, even if we did require it, enforcement on that portion would be quite difficult. We're also not notified when property changes hands. What likely would happen is if the property changed hands, we would begin an enforcement campaign against the new owner for lack of compliance,
Not great.
No, that's not great at all.
right?
Okay. Yeah,
But
thank you.
But the
You see us-
first two,
You see us trying to work together.
and
find
I
common ground.
appreciate it very much, and I think that you're on the right track. I just think that last part is problematic. But the
Sure.
resolution, as I mentioned earlier, adjusting the language to your satisfaction, I think makes a whole lot of sense. And I think that enforcing it or making it actionable by adopting the resolution is critical to serve the desires that you have.
Well, and I'd like to remind this body also that you do have a tool of enforcement of the CUP in and of itself, of if they don't comply, it returns, it returns to this body, and then we talk about enforcement from there, removing those provisions, right? There are those mechanisms if for some reason we are not able to gain code compliance for
So
the
argue if
parking.
we don't go co-compliance, they can't sell it.
What about in the situation that, oh, yeah, that's
Without-
interesting.
They can't sell it without it holding the current CUP that it does hold.
That's
So
right.
it's sort of taking care of number 3.
Yeah, is it
Well,
possible?
what it would be is, I believe he said this earlier, the parking spaces would have to
Yeah.
be maintained.
Retained, yeah.
Yeah, for 5 of them for AT&T.
Totally.
Is it 5? It's 6? Apologies, 6.
So it was a minimum of 5. They ended up identifying
Yes,
6.
sorry.
The condition is 5, right.
So we have
A
two
minimum of
conditions.
5, I
We
just want to
have
clarify
the
that.
existing one, 60 days, right? You have to address. I would seek advice from council. How many days for resolution of something like this? But also, does the CUP revert back if there's future code compliance issues, or once we make this decision?
It would have to come back before this body. It's not something that's automatic. So, and then it would be helpful for, I think, us to understand what the commission understands the difference of address versus resolve. Resolve is obviously conclusion of the matter, but what are you seeking with address? I know that that's the language in.
The way that it reads, at least to me, and I think my co-commissioners feel similarly, is that it's about going to the city and coming up with a plan, and hey, we're going to address
Okay.
this, and we're going to do something without an actual
Yeah.
mechanism in
Not
place for
actually
resolution.
Doing anything.
I'd also like to advise a little bit of caution to focusing on what we're actually talking about. There's an existing code compliance issue that needs to be resolved. I think trying to figure out a way to condition your approval on some future potential additional code compliance issue is problematic. I don't see the
I think
nexus
they're
there.
trying to get the current issue resolved,
And
they
I think
want
that's fine.
And they want a fair amount of time to make sure that what I'm hearing is they want to give you an adequate amount of time to come to compliance, and they're trying to be fair about how much time is necessary to hold you to a standard to address the code issues.
And I have absolutely no problem with that, and I agree with that. I want to be careful with the language potentially implying that any future code compliance issue throws everything out of whack, because no one can forecast the future.
That is what I'm also getting at.
Okay.
So, right, and I don't know if we can do that. Not we, AT&T.
Sure.
I don't know if this body can do that. I think that there has to be a nexus to the decisions that are being made tonight. And the nexus is the existing code compliance issue, resolving the code compliance issue, and satisfying that condition of approval as a result.
I think that would be easily resolved with language of the existing,
Yeah,
right, something
wanted to
like
point that out
existing,
because,
present,
yeah.
some kind of current language where I agree with you, future violations would be a future problem,
Thank you.
right, and handled through code enforcement. They wouldn't come before this body unless
Right.
more permits were asked for while code compliance cases were pending, right?
Yes.
So,
there's-
and then
there's
it would
there's
be
an
at issue.
agency for each of these.
Sure.
Absolutely.
But I think that
Thank you.
there's simple language that we could add to resolve to address that concern if the commission is open.
Could we just say, instead of 60 days, 120 days, and instead of the word address, use the word resolve?
I'm just going to recommend the word comply.
Oh, comply is also a helpful word, thank you.
Yeah, I think that if you say you have to you have to comply with the planning director's code issues by such and such date in order for this CUP adjustment to take place, that I think you've taken care of it.
Maybe must instead of shall.
Must instead of shall.
Shall really means must from a legal perspective, yeah.
It's so fancy too, I prefer must.
Must comply.
Thou shalt.
Thou shalt.
Well, I was gonna ask, is there a time frame, like 120 days got thrown out, 60 days, like, to get this issue, to bring AT&T into compliance?
So again, I do not know, honestly, what the code compliance issue is. So I can't really assign a timeline to it. I think the word comply, and I think the magical phrase of to the satisfaction of the director or whomever the enforcement agency is, would be appropriate language, because that allows the jurisdiction at the city that is responsible for enforcing compliance to manage whatever an appropriate timeline would be. 60 days, 120 days. I don't know. If we leave it at 60 days and we have compliance, and within that 60 days, a plan is developed and an agreement of a reasonable timeline that is congruent to whatever the compliance issue is established between AT&T and the code compliance official, then I think that the intent of that condition is satisfied.
You
And
are
then if
not the
it's-
person that will be resolving this with the director?
I am
It
certainly
was-
the person that is going to be organizing this effort on AT&T's behalf with AT&T and putting the correct personnel at AT&T in place to satisfy
I mean,
the compliance issue.
whether
but-
it's 60 days or 120 days kind of depends on a person who isn't here.
And it depends on what the matter is,
Yeah, it depends on
right?
the
issue.
So,
Right.
so I think that it would behoove everyone to put that responsibility of assigning a timeline to the parties that are going to be responsible for compliance and for enforcement. So the code enforcement official at the city and the contractor or appropriate AT&T personnel that would be responsible with the compliance. They come in, they can create a plan within the defined timeline that you guys prescribed tonight, and that plan would dictate when the actual compliance takes place. That's my suggestion.
So in consultation, we hear you. In consultation with the director, we're recommending 6 months to allow adequate time to come up with a plan and to gain compliance without any kind of time frame on the permit. It allows for this open-ended code compliance issue to continue in the fashion that it has for the last 5 to 7 years.
The beauty of that is, if this gets resolved in 90 days, this resolution passes, CUP's dropped, because they've resolved it within 180 days.
Yes.
But also, if they don't within 180 days, then they have to come back to the planning commission. So there is an incentive on AT&T to resolve this within 180 days.
And if for some reason in the 6-month period, their progress is being made and things are underway, staff can come with a report back and notify the body of this body of the progress, right? And provide a status update, as opposed to some kind of an enforcement action with the CUP.
Yeah, that sounds better to me. I mean, I think with that, we have a little bit more of a guarantee that we'll have a property that's readily available to be either purchased or however that transfer ownership goes, but it'll be a property that is most likely in compliance.
I think we're setting it up so that the city, a hotel,
We don't know.
and a museum could wind up in a bidding war. Just saying.
I don't think we're
I mean,
saying
it's
that.
not our
I'm not setting
problem.
that up.
I think that's the deal.
Setting that up. I'm not setting that up.
I motion that we approve this motion, or this resolution, with the following change, the following amendment. On attachment A, page 3 of 6, section 6, state within 180 days from the approval date, the property owner shall work with the code compliance division to address and resolve the code complaint for the associated parking lot located at 111 West Matilah Street.
Could we
Second.
add to the director's satisfaction?
To the director's satisfaction.
Like that.
So
Okay, you're using resolve as opposed to comply.
Address and resolve.
Address.
I
and
am,
resolve.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Address and resolve
If
and
the,
comply.
I will remove all of the stuff that I've said if it is to the director's satisfaction. And so it doesn't have to come back here. They've got 180 days to work out whatever it
Right,
is.
fix it.
And whether it's fix it or, have a buyer and have a,
We don't know. We want it
No.
resolved. We want
Well,
them to comply. We're not
just-
gonna say if they're gonna sell it, what they're gonna do. We have no idea. We just want them to comply with the code complaint.
This has been my favorite discussion we've had. Not joking. So I make the motion. You have the language.
I second.
Okay. Wait, who seconded?
Chesley?
Yes.
Commissioner Chesley.
Any
Thank
further
you.
discussion? No. Okay. I did want to just add a comment. I think this does put us in a better position to have this project benefit our city and to add additional value, however that property is transferred.
Do we need to make a recommendation to the city
I think we
to
do that at another time, potentially.
separately?
And I don't know what the recommendation
For
would
our,
be.
for our future joint meeting.
It's not agendized,
Yeah, yes,
that discussion.
yes. Yeah,
Okay.
not during this. Yeah. Okay, perfect. All right.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're ready, Sherry.
Bennett,
Aye.
Murphy,
Yes.
Graham,
Aye.
Chesley,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes. Okay. Good to go.
May I just point out that the clock up there, which says it's 5 of 8,
Yes, it is not.
it's really 5
It
of
is not.
9.
It is 9.
Yes.
My heart rate's so low, it's at spin all day. Just gonna keep zinging them out there.
Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. All right. Okay, good job. Let's see, discussion items, proposed topics to discuss at future joint meeting with council. This is what, we could make the.
Maybe parking should be number 1. Maybe we should put numbers back on the future
there's gonna be
discussions.
just one number, which is parking, number
Right.
one. The rest of them are
Everything else
bullets.
is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
whatever
Number one.
happens.
I do agree, under parking, we should put the specific piece of land as a discussion item with the city council. My worry is that if we don't meet with them until later in the year and like this piece
this
of
could be
property is up
long
for
gone.
bid. Exactly. So how can we get it in front of council? How can we put a recommendation in front of council that they should work with the city or with AT&T? I guess I
have
see
two people
our
here.
liaison here.
A couple
Yeah.
people here today.
We're talking
The
to you.
mayor's right here, so I don't think we have a problem.
So I think when we are talking through future agenda items, I think at that point,
We can talk
which is
about
the
it.
next one
Are
after
we not doing
this.
that yet? Sorry.
No, we're on discuss,
This
we're
is
talking about
what you wanna
proposed
talk
topics.
Right now, we're
Topics.
talking about proposed topics for discussion.
Oh, yeah.
The future.
Sorry.
Joint meeting.
Correct.
Okay, so you're removing all of those numbers?
I'm gonna remove all the numbers, replace them with bullet points. Yes. That's one of the actions that I noticed with
I
the
would like
minutes.
to just
Other than parking.
reorder.
Which is a
Reorder the list.
As long as everybody's agreeable, parking still receives a number 1.
That's right. Yeah, it goes
Can we
unsaid.
reorder the list?
You can certainly reorder the list and have the discussion, but if it's bullets, at that point, it's not
I think it's
necessarily
bullets. Let's leave it at
an
bullets.
order, it's just a
I
point of
know, but
discussion.
there's a hint
Oh, okay.
to the list
To
order.
be fair, if it's all bullets at that point,
No priority.
when the joint meeting does come forward, it will be a conversation with the chair and with the mayor in terms of which ones end up
Limiting the,
correct.
okay, so we kind of.
I think your best-
Chair
We only
know.
have, about an hour or so?
You have an hour, there's
We're not gonna hit
discussion
all
of it
these.
potentially
So
being
there
longer,
is,
but
there
there's,
is an item going to council this coming Tuesday to recommend for 2 hours.
Oh,
Okay.
And a schedule at which the commission joint meetings will happen.
Oh, great.
But it has to be adopted by council, so as in this moment, plan for an hour, it could change coming Tuesday.
in
Could
past
we
practices.
instruct our chair in terms of what we would like to see him narrow this down to?
yeah,
An ad hoc of one?
We could talk about that right now if you want.
Yes, you can absolutely
I
talk about it right
think
now.
we
That's-
should.
This is the space.
Okay.
This is on the agenda. This is for discussion.
This is what this is for.
This is what it's for.
So what
That's why
would
it's
you like
on
to
here.
narrow it
Okay,
down to?
I think we've, okay. I think we've all agreed that parking is right up there.
Okay.
Following parking, my personal opinion is that we need to be focused on fire hardening.
Yeah, I think we discussed that last time.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
That's not
those
changed.
are the two things that.
So you like parking and fire?
Maybe the recommendation is don't remove the numbers.
So now we're back on the numbers.
Let's use the numbers. But let's
So
use
one bullet
them
point is larger than
wisely.
the others?
Let's
Is
use
that
them
one?
correctly, maybe.
Yeah, we
think
could, we
that's-
move parking up to
Parking number
Use
one.
the numbers correctly.
design and.
Wait,
Gardening.
we have two numbers, right? And then everything else is a bullet point.
All right, so we got 1 and 2. So
One and
1 is
two.
parking, 2 is fire
I
hardening.
mean, I would put design guidelines as 3 and noise as 4, but, I could see it going other ways.
Okay, so anybody else? What do you guys, you like 3 as design guidelines and then 4 as noise and sound?
I think that noise has come up more frequently as an issue to this body.
True. No, it comes up almost every
It
other.
comes up pretty often.
Every other
That
project.
noise and sound
Do we-
come up more
Do we
regularly.
know what we're talking about with regard, or what we want to talk about with regards to noise and sound?
Yeah, I think we want to look at what the current code has,
Uh-huh.
what the decibel levels are, what the code enforcement is for those decibel levels,
Uh-huh.
and then look to modify that if we need to. If we want to make it more restrictive, less restrictive.
And like even the public noise level down Ojai Ave and, cars, motorcycles, whatever it is.
Yep.
There's been
Mufflers.
discussion about that.
So noise wouldn't be something that went before this body, but you could ask council to commission a study to look into
see.
those things. The way that it has come up with the permits is for our hotels that are wanting to be event venues that abut residential property is consistently where this issue came up in the last year, because they're being held to a commercial standard, but because they're abutting residential, there has been a consistent conversation with this body of, is that standard appropriate based off of the location, even though, it's a commercial hotel here and then residence based off of the use. And there wasn't flexibility for the commission to change the decibel level in the code because it was set. So that's how that conversation has come up this year.
Got it.
Or last year. We're almost halfway through this year.
We've also seen the conversation come up with restaurants, not just hotels,
Sure,
but
sure.
restaurants that want to have music, and then the question is the music amplified or not? It's not a simple question, and do you stand at the
Parking,
All right, so,
fire,
yeah.
and then we'll do
Noise.
noise and then design.
design.
Okay.
It's okay, these things are all designed.
Can I just make a plug for design guidelines?
We thought you did. We thought you did right here.
Yeah, I
Should
put
we
it
go
as
back
number
to
one.
bullet points?
Let's go back to bullet points.
These were
There are-
Lucas's priorities.
Just so you guys
the
are
truth.
aware.
No, I'm just.
Just so you're aware, there are the guidelines that exist within our city as identified within the downtown area.
Yep.
And then it's why it's given a design guidelines discussion. Then there are the objective design guidelines, which are mandated through one of our housing element programs.
That's a big deal.
And that needs to be addressed so that we can stay in good graces with HCD moving forward. Because we're
This is just
leaning
all
into.
future agenda items.
Correct.
Oh, I see.
Correct. We're leaning into, right now we're in, is it cycle 6, leaning into cycle 7 for our housing element. We're in the next year is going to be the discussion on RENA and all those different pieces. I want to make sure that we're at least as close to being buttoned up with a lot of these programs. This is one of them. And if we're not, and we're putting it towards the bottom of the bucket, I'm nervous from that standpoint, at least on this piece.
I support his nervousness. HCD is not an agency we want paying attention to us whatsoever.
I guess I thought you were bringing those before us. Either way, that's on your agenda, and this was sort of an agenda
happens,
that we wanted to
yes.
add to the agendas that you were already preparing.
If I'm in-
to applications and
Yeah,
projects.
so
you guys are working on.
here's the thing. When you go forward as a joint meeting and council's like, yes, we want you to work on it, and we want staff to work on it as well.
I see.
If we're putting certain items at the top of the list and suddenly that item's towards the bottom,
I see.
and obviously I'll be making that same plug before city council that we want to make sure we're staying in good graces. I recognize obviously the fire hardening piece, given the circumstances that have happened recently, that jumps to the top of the list.
But we
Let's
are-
not
we
forget
are
that.
limited in what we can do as a body around.
Correct. So it's an educational piece at that point, saying, these are the standards, can we take it further?
A lot of that is Title IX.
Yeah. It's outside of the jurisdictions of this body.
But, so it could be quick. I mean, we're basically, what you're saying is we just really need to be saying, hey, city council, design guidelines are important to us.
Yep.
But we really want to talk about parking.
Let staff work with.
Really love parking.
We want to
Love
empower
parking.
Lucas, but then we want to talk about parking.
Yes, because
about
I'm,
resources.
just so you know, staff is working on it in the background
Right.
regardless.
Right.
But if it's going to the bottom, I don't want anybody to think that it's now getting
We'll
pushed to
give
the
you
side.
number 3 instead of number 4.
I just don't want it to be number 5, I think is what I'm getting at.
It's not
Yeah, I'm
number
with making
5.
sure that resource conversations are top of the list, sure.
Okay, good.
Okay, so. do
Sorry,
we
that's
still
my
have-
plug, and then now I'm,
Do we still have the same order, parking, fire, design, 4, noise? And then other, obviously, 5.
Okay, let's do it.
Well,
Okay.
I kind of like putting fire hardening and undergrounding
You want that
as
with 1?
as number 1, because it's a broader conversation. The undergrounding issue has just been floating around there, but really not.
It's very
We
expensive.
haven't really talked about it.
Yeah.
Well, it's very expensive, but, you know,
uh,
the
All right, all right,
infrastructure
so
you
let-
do is gonna last 30 years.
Let's go back.
So this is like an hour to maybe 2 that we
14.
have with the
Right.
council,
Right.
right? And the idea is we're saying, hey, guys, this stuff is important to us.
This is what we want to work on.
We want you to agree that this is important.
Or what's important to you, like we're bringing,
Right,
we think
right.
these are things that we should be focusing and
Yeah.
spending our time on, and
Yeah.
council's gonna say, yeah, that's a great idea,
Right.
or give you direction to do something else, or, you know, steer the conversation of like, yeah, we want you to look into this, but we want you to consider X, Y, Z
Okay.
when you do it, right?
Okay, my
Or-
mistake then. Let's take the numbers off and let's establish the numbers when we're in the closed meeting. I mean, that seems to be, it's
Sure.
like,
Set priority during the
set the
meeting.
priority during the meeting. Like, we know we want to talk about all these things. There's nothing that, we don't have to go into like so much detail that each of these things takes.
The chair is going to negotiate this. The
2
chair
hours.
I
has
just
the,
want to know what your
has
priority
the,
is.
has the priorities. It goes 3, 1, 4, 2, by the way.
Yeah,
I don't know if you had a chance to watch so we're gonna need to come up with a staff report.
Yep.
I interrupted myself. So this will require a staff report, right, to explain what each of the things that you wanna potentially talk about is. I feel like the HPC joint meeting actually went really fluidly. It would be something that would be good to watch.
Okay.
They got through all of their items, they were able to get clear direction
Okay.
and move forward. I felt like they used their time very efficiently. And the chair steering the discussion, people were able to weigh in. Our commissioners were able to weigh in on what they thought, the feedback from council.
When was this?
That was
Recent, right?
the last meeting?
yeah, it was at the
Yes.
end, at the end of the last
Who
month.
leads this conversation for us? If we can barely get through like 2 agenda items being very serious, you know, in like 3 hours, how do we make sure that we use this 1 hour to the best of our ability?
So the chairs are the leader, right? And I think it's also of each of you coming to the table, being respectful of the time, right?
Right.
And having the things that you want to say and the points that you want to make before council, focusing things that council can give you feedback on.
Yeah.
Right? I think it falls, I guess, to each of you in the chair
Yep,
to be efficient.
great.
No pressure.
No pressure. Well, we have our list, so I think
Okay.
we're in good shape. Okay, so let's move on. I think we beat that thing to death.
That we did.
I know we talked about this already, but with the future agenda items, I think we briefly touched on it, but we probably didn't hit everything. So is there other items that we need discussed?
Well, let me just go through the list here. So, we are going to have a meeting on the 16th of April, so in 2 weeks. There's 2 lot line adjustments that we're seeing. One is merging 2 lots into one, and one is just an adjustment of an existing line across two lots. Don't have any items on for May 7th, but definitely have one on for the 21st, which is 412 Mallory Way. So you should be expecting to see that. I'm currently reviewing that for completeness, and I'm seeing it for sure going on the 21st. All right.
Is that the cottages?
It is Mallory Way. Cottages is below it. So
Got it. Okay. Got it.
bungalows, I think, is the way in which it's
Bungalows?
previously been described.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Sweet. Director's report.
Nothing to report. Yeah, no,
Okay.
it's just we've been very busy. Any of the council meetings you've been seeing recently, this department has been well represented in terms of bringing projects forward, so it's not ending anytime soon.
All right.
But I would say this, any of the items that you're seeing on pending, just to go back to what we were looking at,
Yeah.
some of them have been lingering here for a while. If these applicants aren't willing to make changes for it to be complete, for it to move forward, it's not moving forward.
Yep.
They've got to make sure that they're addressing all of the items for the matter to be complete. So when you're seeing these as pending, they're pending for a reason. It's not because we're holding them up. We've given them the playbook for them to move forward. They're just not doing the things that need to be done for them to move forward.
And I apologize. You have fire hardening, fireways, communities, wildfire preparedness. Is that pending somebody else?
It's just pending on that list because we went ahead and put it on the item we just talked about
Future
before.
items.
So
Okay.
it was there as a
Got it.
placeholder for us to talk about in the
Okay.
future.
Perfect.
yeah.
Okay. Commission member reports. Anybody?
Who attended the MAC?
Yeah, anybody at the MAC?
No, it was canceled, right?
Was it canceled?
Oh, that's right. It was canceled.
Canceled.
I did
You're
see
right.
that.
'Cause
You're
I
right.
think you were.
I was at the previous one.
You were the previous one. Got it. Okay. Cool. All right. City Council liaison, Mr. Whitman. Very nice.
Yeah, I try not to ever contribute to your
No, you did great. Thank you. You were a planning commissioner at one point, so we appreciate it.
But I show up and I always feel challenged not to say something. But I've been around a long time, so sometimes.
We appreciate it.
I just want to thank you guys for the work you're doing. I agree with what Jesse said earlier. Actually, I disagree with what Jesse said earlier about this being the best discussion your commission has had, because you've had some good ones.
Who's Jesse?
I thought that was your name.
Oh, wait.
Robert.
Oh, Robert.
Robert, sorry.
Yeah.
Nobody knows my name.
Don't worry, I called him Richard at least twice.
I know your name.
Yeah, okay.
It's a very tricky.
Well,
Robert is a tricky name.
That would be, yeah, so I don't mean to add to confusion, but I thought the discussion you guys had about the inn, I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah.
You guys did a really good job of, working through. I love to hear you guys talk about, is this project good for Ojai? That's something I hope we say when we're dealing with things at our city council dais. So I think you have a good team here. The 7 of you are working well together, and I really appreciate that you're helping us out.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thanks for the
being
feedback.
Thanks.
Okay, well, that is it, folks. We will officially adjourn, and that clock is wrong, so we are out of here at 9:13.